Good evening. Welcome everyone to the May meeting of Mount Alexander Shire Council. To start the official proceedings, I want to acknowledge that we are meeting tonight on Jara country, of which the members and elders of the Jara community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. Council meetings are audio and video recorded and are made available to the public via electronic media, including YouTube. All councillors are present, so we have no apologies. Declarations of interest and conflicts of interest, councillors.
Yes, Mayor, I have a conflict with a general conflict with 9.6.3.
Thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Certainly. Confirmation of minutes. Who'd like to move that we confirm the minutes of the previous meeting? Councillor Annear.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move that the minutes of the meeting of the Mount Alexander Shire Council held on 21st April 2026 be confirmed.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, all those in favour and against, and that's carried. So we have no acknowledgements tonight. Public time, we do have some public time questions. So can we move that we suspend standing orders to hear public time?
I'll move we suspend standing orders.
Thanks, Councillor Maltby. Is there a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Annear. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. So we have a few pre-submitted questions. I'll just read out the public question time rules. So each speaker in addressing the council will generally be limited to one question and allowed up to 3 minutes to speak. Secondly, they shall extend due courtesy in respect to the council and the processes under which it operates. Thirdly, shall take direction from myself as chair of the meeting whenever I call upon a speaker to do so. And fourthly, shall not attempt to enter into discussion or debate with council. However, councillors may ask questions of clarification of the speaker. So please state your name clearly, state if you are representing a group or organisation, and state in a few words what you wish to raise. We'll start with the pre-submitted ones. Councillor Annear, would you like to read Thomas Vandel's question, please?
Thank you, Mayor. This question is submitted by Thomas Vandale. If any roadworks or construction is planned, please make sure to, for example, block road on Google Maps or Apple Maps so GPS can know. I had to do it around the library, but it would be great if council could do it.
Thank you. Thomas, can I ask Director of Infrastructure Michael Annear to respond to that, please?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Thomas, for your suggestions. I can confirm that Council currently communicates road closures on our website, and we will investigate with our contractors the informing of GIS mapping platforms for future road closures. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director. The second question we have is from Margaret Gray. Margaret, do you want to read your question in person? Oh, sorry, please come to the lectern so we can get you on the YouTube.
Does the council feel concerned about the sale of untaxed cigarettes by shops in Castlemaine?
Thank you, Margaret. Again, I'll ask Director Annear to respond to this, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Margaret. Local councils in Victoria do not have a direct role in enforcing laws against the sale of illegal tobacco or vapes. This is currently managed by the Tobacco Licensing Victoria and the Illicit Tobacco Task Force of the Australian Border Force at this point in time.
Does it concern the council that these sales exist?
I think it would be fair to say that it concerns many of us that this exists, but I think the point that Director Annear is making is that responsibility for the management and policing of that is outside of council's jurisdiction.
So how could a citizen help try to stop this illegal activity?
I think Director Anea.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Margaret. So you are able to, if you have any concerns, you're able to inform the tobacco licence in Victoria of any concerns you may have, or you may also raise some concerns with the local police here in Castlemaine or in the local townships. If there are, if you observe anything that you would like to be followed up, they're able to help you with those matters.
Thank you,
Have they
Director. Thank
provided-
you, Margaret. Sorry, we're not entering into discussions. Thank you, but happy to take further questions by email or telephone call. Paul van der Waal, would you like to read your question? Is Paul here? Can I ask Councillor Walker, please, to read Paul van der Waal's question?
Yes, Mayor. The question is, I heard the empty block at the roundabout is sold to McDonald's. Is this true? If so, this would be very much against the wishes of the community and I'm sure council as well.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Paul. In accordance with the governance rules of 2023, clause 12.1.6, questions and statements to council may be on any matter except if it A, relates to a matter outside the duties, functions and powers of the council, and K, relates to any other matter which the council considers would prejudice the council or any person. Council has not received a planning permit application for this site. If a future planning permit application is received, Council will consider this at the time on planning merits, including but not limited to the environmental, social and economic impacts.
May I add to this carefully that some information about titles is available publicly online, although generally it's not allowed to be shared, and the public could, and maybe Michael could clarify this, and that the public could access this information
Thank
themselves.
you, Councillor. Director Anea.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Councillor. Yes, if somebody was inclined, there are avenues to find out information online for property ownership, if they would like to do that online.
Thank you. Any questions from the floor tonight? Okay, I think this gentleman had his hand up first.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors and council employees. My name is Lucas McGoran and I'm representing the Castlemaine Childcare Cooperative as their chairperson. I'm here tonight to ask you to vote in favour of the motion to enter into an agreement to lease at 15 Templeton Street. In 1995, Council wisely supported our expansion plans by acquiring 15 Templeton, next door to our existing centre at 17, and giving us a 30-year peppercorn lease so we could be eligible for a Commonwealth Government capital grant to expand and provide more childcare to local families. In the intervening years, despite only paying $1 per year, we have proved to be an exceptional tenant. You see, the Commonwealth grant was only part of the story. The co-op took on loans to pay for more than 60% of the original building works on council's land, as well as all the improvements since. Solar panels, kitchen reno, bathroom reno, all paid for by us, all now owned by council in accordance with the terms of the lease. But far more important than our financial contribution is that through the stewardship and volunteerism of hundreds of local families and the incredible nurturing work of hundreds of local educators and support staff, the co-op has provided outstanding childcare to the region. According to the national quality standards, we are currently rated in the top 1% of all services in the nation, and aren't we so lucky to have that in our shire? Tonight, 31 years since the last lease was signed, the situation is almost identical. What's at stake is this shire's best chance at expanding childcare in the near future. We know that when the council's early years plan was developed, many parents and carers reported how hard it is to find childcare, so I won't relitigate that case. Suffice to say, we have over 300 children on our waiting list. We have already done a bulk of work to apply for this new Commonwealth Capital Grant worth up to $3 million. But unlike 31 years ago, we don't need any capital outlay from Council this time. To be eligible, we only need signed confirmation of a continuation of the status quo. Finally, I want to put something on the record because I'm not sure it's widely understood. The legal boundary between our property and yours, between 15 and 17 Templeton, runs directly through our administration office. It runs down the ramp from the veranda and through the yard. It bisects the yard. There is no practical distinction between the two properties. Any alternative tenant arrangement isn't just unlikely, it is not possible. I don't think anybody doubts we will get a new lease. I only ask that we get it in time to be eligible for this Commonwealth grant. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas, and we'll bear those comments in mind this evening. Who was next? Lucy.
Good evening. Oh, glasses on, glasses off. Good evening, Mayor, councillors and officers of the Mount Alexander Shire. My name is Lucy Young and I'm speaking for the Yimby community. It's been a couple of minutes since you've heard from us. Thank you for taking the time to consider the documents we've sent you over the past few weeks, including a petition from over 1,000 of our fellow community members. We want to stress that this is not a position we wanted to be in. We have gone to considerable lengths over the past 5 years to work alongside Council and to achieve a common purpose, the removal of organics from landfill. Hopefully the documents we have provided can convey the serious doubts we have about the adoption of a FOGO system as currently designed, as far as we understand it, for the Mount Alexander Shire. We want to acknowledge the impact on Council staff and councillors of the course of action that we have chosen, and we are asking Council to work together with Yimby, with us, and the many willing and capable members of this community to design the best organics recycling system we can. The purpose of this small piece of work tonight is to make 3 main points. Yimby is committed to working together to remove organics from landfill, including organics created by our businesses and events. 2, there are many options that have been imagined by community members, ourselves included, that have not yet had the opportunity to be explored. On-farm solutions, medium-scale community composting and curbside chipping, to name a few. 3, the scale of change needed to tackle climate change requires everyone to play their part. Mount Alexander Shire, as I'm sure you'll remember, declared a climate emergency in 2019. The International Panel for Climate Change has been calling for rapid, far-reaching and unprecedented changes in all aspects of society for at least a decade. Writers like George Monbiot and Naomi Klein state that there are no non-radical options left before us. Rob Hopkins, co-initiator of Transition Town, states, "We are in a crisis of imagination," and that, quote, "Perhaps imagination is the only thing radical enough to get us through, provided, of course, that it is accompanied by bravery and action." We are calling upon the Mount Alexander Shire to be courageous, to trust that as a community we are stronger together, and that if we have any chance of making real change, we must work together to imagine the best system we can and make it happen. Ian Millis, cultural commentator, writes that collaboration is not a style, it is a rehearsal for survival. In the next decades, communities that know how to maintain water systems, buildings, local archives, seed stocks, machinery, public space, relations of mutual aid, and I add compost, will be more resilient than communities that know only how to consume services delivered from elsewhere, like FOGO. Last paragraph. As we have seen with the Harcourt bushfires, people are capable of working together, and we need to get more and more practice, as many of the effects of climate change are already upon us. Resilience and adaptation need to be on the table, actions that engage the creativity and goodwill of the community. The YIMBY petition has been submitted to the council and we eagerly await your outcome of deliberation, and we are ready to roll up our sleeves to keep doing the work that is required in this shire. I don't have a question.
Thank you. Thank you, Lucy. We'll bear that in mind. Thank you. Any other questions from the floor this evening? Okay, thank you. Councillor Maltby, will you resume standing orders?
I move that standing orders be resumed.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Anea. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. So item 7, under petitions and letters, 7.1, the petition request to delay food organics and garden organics collection. Councillor Maddock, would you introduce this, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. At 7.1, Council received a petition on the 12th of May 2026 with 1,102 signatures calling on the Council to delay the rollout of food organics and garden organics, FOGO, bin until 2030 to give Council and the community the chance to find better options. The petition is shown at confidential attachment 7.1.1, and the recommendation here is that Council 1 acknowledges receipt of the petition and 2 receives a report on this petition at the meeting of Council on the 21st of July 2026.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Walker. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. So under section 8, we have no committee reports. So we move on to section 9, officer reports. And the first one under 9.1, organisation, is 9.1.1. Councillor Anea, would you introduce this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. 9.1.1, planning application for Camp Reserve Castlemaine PA 077/2025. The purpose of this report is to enable Council to decide on an application for buildings and works associated with a minor sports and recreation facility, alteration of access to a Transport Zone 2, demolition, removal of native and non-native vegetation, and provision of car parking at 11 Forest Street, Castlemaine. The application has been referred to Council for a decision because the application has received greater than 10 objections. The Council officer recommendation is to recommend an approval of the application subject to conditions. The subject site is within clause 36.02, public park and recreation zone, and is affected by the clause 42.03, significant landscape overlay schedule 2, clause 43.01, heritage overlay HO 668, clause 44.03, floodway overlay, and clause 44.04, land subject to inundation overlay. The application was advertised. 82 objections and 92 letters of support were received at the time of this report, at the time of preparing the report. The application was assessed against and determined that the proposal is consistent with the relevant sections of the planning policy framework. It also meets the provisions of the public park and recreation zone, heritage overlay, floodway overlay, and land subject to inundation overlay. In forming this position, consideration was given to the grounds of objection and the views of the relevant referral authorities. It is recommended that the application is supported and a notice of decision to grant a planning permit is issued in accordance with the following recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor. Thanks, Councillor. Do we have a seconder for this motion? Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. The motion, please, Councillor.
Thank you. So I move that Council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant planning permit PA 077/2025 for buildings and works associated with a minor sports and recreation facility, alterations of access to a Transport Zone 2, demolition, removal of native and non-native vegetation, and provision of car parking at 11 Forest Street, Castlemaine, subject to the following conditions as printed.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Do we have objection?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to propose a procedural motion that we defer this.
Thanks, Councillor Maddox. So a procedural motion to defer this item. Do we have a seconder?
I should probably read
Oh,
it
sorry.
out.
Yeah,
Sorry,
beg your
Mayor.
pardon. What
That was
the
on
motion
me.
then?
So this motion is that this matter be deferred to a future meeting of council to enable officers to request the applicant to seek and present further advice, reviewing and clarifying the feasibility of option location B for the location of the netball courts and pavilion to minimise heritage impact, and that this advice would be used to update the existing heritage impact statement.
Thanks, Councillor Maddox. Do we have a seconder for this? Thanks, Councillor Hastwell. And do we have opposition to this? Okay. So, Councillor Maddox, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Yeah, I will. Thank you, Mayor. I'm concerned that in the conclusions in the heritage impact statement, so that the conclusions in the heritage impact statement appear to be predicated on the notion that there are no other feasible locations for the pavilion and the netball courts. This is despite acknowledging that the proposed works would constitute an impact on the heritage significance of Camp Reserve and environs. And given the restraints of the site, GML is satisfied that the design process has adequately explored alternative options for further reducing or avoiding adverse impacts. And the design process has adequately explored alternative options for further reducing, I might be repeating there, sorry, reducing or avoiding adverse impacts. The details of why alternative options like the details of why alternative options like costings and precedents are not detailed in this report surprises me. And it seems central to their claim that the impact on the heritage significance of Camp Reserve and environs is justified in their concluding statements. An example of that, in the closing paragraph, GML state, the nature and extent of these impacts as represented in the current form of the proposal is considered reasonable because the proposed changes would facilitate enhanced ongoing uses of place, which is consistent with the intangible heritage values of the reserve. And I think what's important to note there is the considered reasonable. And what I worry here is that the other options available have not been fully explored. And I'll just note in this report, it documents an email that was sent by council to GML, which documented advice from I'm going to get this wrong, from the Catchment Authority, NCCMA. This advice seemed to indicate a rigidity in the reasons for not going with location B, and it was reported in that they weren't practical, and that it wasn't feasible as an option. My understanding and my view is that there's much more room to move in option B, and that therefore this advice hasn't been made with all the facts in front of GML. And I believe that the conclusive statement in the GML report is potentially flawed, and I think it needs to be reviewed, and that this conclusive statement has probably influenced the officer recommendation in this regard, and that I think the conclusive statement and the officer recommendation need to be reviewed, and I feel I need that in order to feel satisfied that I have all the information to make this decision.
Thanks, Councillor Maddox. Councillor Hassel, would you like to speak now or reserve your right? Okay. I think when I asked for objections, a few hands went up. Maybe Councillor Maltby, Councillor Anir, would you like to go first?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I think I disagree with Councillor Maddox that, and I think it's based on my understanding of the reasons that this heritage impacts statement was prepared, which was in response to a decision of council in 2023, where a motion was moved to note the community engagement feedback received from public consultation process on the draft plans for the new pavilion, netball and multipurpose courts. Notes the further feedback provided on the adopted master plan, remembering that the master plan was previously adopted in 2020. Approves the exhibited schematic designs as the basis for preparing the planning permit documentation for the pavilion and netball/multipurpose courts, and approves commencement of the planning permit application. So this planning application follows that decision of council, of the previous council in 2023, all based on the adopted master plan. I think it is unreasonable to expect then the heritage advice that we've been provided in this heritage impact statement to explore those other ideas when they are working off the adopted master plan that has been adopted twice by council. And I think it would be unreasonable for them to explore those other options when this planning permit says where things are going as in the adopted master plan. I also think that, I don't know, we'll potentially be setting a dangerous precedent if we decide what is and isn't acceptable in the advice that we seek to aid our decisions. GML are an incredibly well-respected heritage advising consultancy, Australia-wide. They have provided what I consider to be robust heritage advice based on the application that they are working from, based on the decision of council. I think the fact that we would defer this because they are not doing more than was asked of them, and in fact that we would ask them to do stuff that negates previous decisions, would be a very strange thing to do. And I think that would be going back to re-interrogate the master plan, which is not the decision that we're making today. The decision that we're making today is on this planning permit. The advice that they have provided is based on this planning permit. And I feel like they have met their brief, and I am satisfied with the advice provided.
Thank you, Councillor Annear. Other councillors would like to speak for or against this? Councillor Maltby.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillor Annear is correct. There's a very comprehensive report from the Heritage Advisors. There's also one from the Arboriculturist Environment and Flood Impact Statements. And they all support the original and the second master plan that's been approved by previous councils. Over time, many things have happened on Camp Reserve. There's a tin shed that's a table tennis centre. There's another tin shed up the back that houses the chooks for the Castlemaine show. The master plan does not ruin the amenity and the historical value of the oval, the complex. And that says that in this historical report as well. I remember, and if you drive out to Chewton.
Sorry, Councillor, just for this moment, let's keep it relevant to the deferral motion at hand. So,
well, I'm explaining why it shouldn't be deferred.
Okay.
Quite seriously, it shouldn't be deferred because all you're doing is questioning the comprehensive reports. You're also delaying any opportunity that financial aid from federal and state government may happen. And majority of people acknowledge that there needs to be works done over there.
Thanks, Councillor Maltby. Any other councillors like to speak for or against? Councillor Walker.
Yes, Mayor, I'm speaking in support of the motion. I find this an interesting situation since the elections in 2024. This is probably the first occasion when at least 3 councils who were elected having a difference with councillors who were returned. I certainly respect the councillors that have been here for a while. They're probably feeling a bit tired. They've been through this for a number of years. They've done a lot of work on it and they would like to see it go ahead. At the same time, those of us who are new, we've also spent hours going through all the documents, looking at meeting minutes, looking at meeting videos, looking at the site itself, and clearly we remain at this point unconvinced. And it's certainly, there's agreement, it needs to be done. There's nobody objecting to that. It's just a question of the heritage aspect as to what can be further retained, as well as accommodating those interests that we want to see the sports grow, both football and netball. And it's just saying, if we've spent so much time on it so far, let's just spend a little bit more time and make sure we've got it right. There is full respect to the professionals that were engaged with this, but as elected councillors, it is our job to question. And it is our job to explore these issues, and we're saying it simply needs to be explored further, and that's what we're putting the deferral for. Thank you.
Point of order, Mayor.
Yes.
I would prefer if Councillor Walker does not make assumptions about why councillors who have been around longer may or may not be supporting this motion, and maybe it has nothing to do with us just being tired and wanting to rush it through. I think that is an unfair assumption.
Thank you,
If that's
Councillor.
the case, I do apologise. I wasn't meaning it that way. In fact, as I said, I do respect the number of hours that have been put into this.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Any other councillors like to speak for or against this deferral motion? Councillor Hastrell, you have your right to.
Thanks, Mayor. And look, this is a huge consideration. It's complex, and I would agree with Councillor Walker and also Councillor Maddock, I'm sure, that there's been a huge amount of very conscientious investment and effort and professionalism go into the development of the master plan and the planning application. So at the same time, I would also very much agree with Councillor Walker that as a new councillor, and when we say new, you don't feel quite so fresh and vigorous perhaps after the first 18 months, but I guess I'm meaning that there obviously, again, there's a group of councillors who have not been part of this process. That in itself is in no way a reason in itself to object, but we do have the responsibility, and I think I can speak, I'm sure, for all of the councillors here. There have been hours and hours put into looking at this really closely and trying to get around the complexity. So, while there has been that very thorough work undertaken, and there have been a number of parameters that were agreed to through the master plan process and endorsed by the last council, there are concerns. I won't go into great detail, but we're also very aware that in terms of community or some aspects of the community, some community interests, that we have also heard that perhaps some of those were not as strongly taken into account as others. So that also is something that we are very cognizant of, not necessarily sort of agreeing with that, but it's certainly something that we listen to and want to make sure that this is a really balanced response. I think it's been made very clear that nobody, and that would include the 80+ objectors. I don't think any of the objectors came and said this, that there's no need for improvement of infrastructure. There's a recognition that there's growth in the sporting clubs, that there is need for upgrading and expansion of infrastructure. It's about how we get that balance right. And I think the major consideration there is around the heritage-related concerns. And I will just read out from the GML Heritage Report, specifically in relation to consideration of where the netball courts might be located. They are currently located on the master plan in the area that we call Option A. In the report, the consultants also state that in relation to location B, which is at the other side of the oval, that that location B is potentially suitable. Under the following conditions, a flood response plan would be required to mitigate the risk of flooding through measures such as closing the venue during storm inundation events to the satisfaction of the authority. So I read that out not because I'm saying that that is absolutely the solution, but to convey that there, in the advice that is presented to us, there is some acknowledgement that there is more than one option. And I believe that that needs to be investigated further before I can be comfortable with this proposal.
Thanks, Councillor Haswell. Councillor Maddock, you have a right of reply.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillor colleagues. And thank you, Rosalie, for maybe being more articulate than me on some of those points. Just to address some of your concerns, Rosie, these alternative locations were assessed to some extent as part of the heritage impact statement. So I'm not asking for something additional. I think it's important that they're explored because heritage values are going to be impacted by this, and that's acknowledged in the heritage impact statement. There will be significant costs, for instance, the red gum trees. There's no indication in the heritage impact report that that their removal has been adequately mitigated. It is just a heritage value loss because of this. GML seek to balance that loss against the value to the community, and specifically for the ongoing use and the updated community demand for new facilities on that site. They're balancing those two off against each other. If location B was properly explored, there may be another option there, which is that community sport and community use of the site can continue, and they talk about intangible heritage values of that happening, and I fully appreciate that that's important to continue happening there, and that sports and recreation in this community is important aside from that as well. So I guess the very premise of the conclusion in this heritage impact statement rests on the fact that they see location B as not being feasible based on advice that looks like has come from us, which I think has not been fulsomely explored. So what I would like to see where there's note in there of management saying it's cost prohibitive, I'd like to see the costs. How much would it cost to do this project in insurance, in maintenance, all these things? How much would that cost us? And could we save some of these heritage values as a result? Without those numbers and figures, I find it really hard to do that. And I'm hoping, my intention is that this deferral would allow some of that to come out more, and that may change the some of the heritage impact recommendations we're receiving.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock, and thank you, Councillor. So let's put that deferral motion to the vote. All those in favour and against? So that motion is defeated. We'll return to the original motion. So Councillor Anea has introduced and moved. The motion is printed. We have a seconder, Councillor Maltby. Would you like to speak further to your motion, Councillor Anea?
Yep.
Sorry, would you like to speak to your motion, Councillor?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a swathe of documentation in front of me to try and draw on. This is this is a decision that I don't take lightly, and I have really endeavoured to be as prepared as possible to make a decision, because that's my job as a councillor. That's all of our jobs. So I am moving the recommendation to approve the planning permit, subject to 101 conditions. It's a lot. I can't find my document right now, but It is pages and pages and pages of conditions that address many aspects of concern, I believe. I think just keep going a little bit more, from around this point, which is halfway through, the conditions are all around heritage and archaeological conservation, artefact management, as referred to Heritage Victoria, which is the statutory authority on heritage in the state of Victoria. I toyed with the idea of reading out all 101 conditions, but decided against it because I think I would run out of voice. But I've gone through the conditions extensively to make sure that I fully understand, I guess, the ways in which concerns are being managed and the different ways that the referral authorities have indicated their support subject to conditions. So I've written some of this down because it is just too much for me to hold in my brain, if I'm honest. There are so many components of this matter, and it has been effortful to get across it all, but I feel like I am as across it all as I'm going to get. So tonight we're tasked with making a decision on a planning permit associated with works at the Camp Reserve. Like I said previously, this application responds to a decision made by the previous council in February 2023 to approve commencement of the planning permit application for redevelopment of the pavilion and netball courts in accordance with the Camp Reserve Master Plan, which was itself adopted by the previous council in September 2020. As you can see, this application is supported by extensive documentation, including an Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Management Report, a Heritage Impact Statement, an acoustic report, an arboricultural assessment, a flood risk and stormwater management assessment, and a traffic impact assessment. The application was also assessed by numerous referral authorities, including North Central Catchment Management Authority, Department of Transport and Planning, whatever DECA stands for, CFA and Heritage Victoria, as well as other council departments and an external heritage advisor. JARA also assessed the application as part of the Cultural Heritage Management Plan process. Councillors, again, have been provided with a huge amount of supporting documentation to aid our decision making, and we've also heard from a large number of community members, both through their written submissions and in person at an applicant objector supporter meeting that was held 2 weeks ago in the chamber here. I feel well informed, and I thank everyone who shared their thoughts for their time and passion. All that said, there is just too much here for me to speak to it all. So I'm going to touch on a few important aspects that have helped me feel confident in my decision to support this application. I'll also talk about a few of the objections we've heard from people about this proposal, and then about what I think, because at the end of the day, I'm here as one of 8 democratically elected councillors to make decisions on behalf of the whole community, and that's something I take very seriously, and also something that causes me a fair amount of stress. The Camp Reserve is in my ward. It's near where I live. I go there often, and I know the place very well. It's somewhere I've enjoyed throughout my whole life, and it's special to me, just as I know it's special to many different people for many different reasons. And I think that's a big part of the tension that exists around what to do with the Camp Reserve next. One thing that almost everyone seems to agree on is that the camp's current facilities need to be upgraded to provide safer, more equitable access for users. I feel like this is not in contention. This is something supported by everyone. However, the number one concern I would say about this application and the proposed redevelopment is the potential impact on the heritage values of the site. Heritage is tricky, and I haven't written this down, but I think the more I've reflected on it and wrestled with what heritage means, and particularly how heritage seems to mean different things to different people, and that there is an element of subjectivity about it, because heritage is personal, and heritage is valued by different people in different ways. Something that has really helped me to understand a bit more why heritage is often so contentious and why it is sometimes subjective is really getting a handle on the difference between history and heritage. So history is objective, factual study and chronological records of the past. Its focus is truth, evidence and context. And heritage is a subjective selection of traditions, physical sites, artefacts and stories passed down from previous generations that we choose to value in the present. Its focus is on identity, values, and often we have very emotional connections to it. And I think this tension is often seen in planning matters because there is this personal element and this personal interpretation to heritage. And that's why you can get so many differing opinions on it, whereas history is generally a little bit more fixed and a little less argued over, though, of course, not all the time. I know that the heritage of Castlemaine and the broader Mount Alexander Shire has huge significance as the world's richest shallow alluvial goldfield. Neither Castlemaine or the Camp Reserve would be here the way they are if it were not for the gold rush. Briefly, just touching on the history of the site itself, in 1851, it became the site of the 3rd Gold Commissioners' Camp on the goldfields, which was important. It remains important. In 1855, the first recorded sporting matches occurred. Between 1861 and 1862, the camp was closed, and Captain Bull requested that part of the site remain as a recreational reserve for local use. From the 1870s, the Castlemaine Agricultural Show was held there. In 1895, it was permanently reserved as a site for public recreation. In 1934, it became the permanent location for the Castlemaine and District Agricultural Show. It has been used for community sport and recreation since the 1850s and remains the home of several sporting clubs, as well as other groups who use the space for community events and other gatherings. I think for a lot of people, including myself, that is how we have experienced the Camp Reserve, as a place where we go to play or watch sport, where we go to community events, where we watch the fireworks once a year, and where we go to the Castlemaine Show every year, which particularly as a kid, and then maybe even more so as a naughty teenager, was one of the most exciting things that you could do every year. For others, I know the values are more around the past and more around the heritage of the place. And I know that there is concern and fear that what is proposed is going to destroy that heritage fabric. There has been a huge amount of heritage, cultural heritage and archaeological work undertaken as part of preparing this application. On considering it all, I feel, as do the external heritage advisors who prepared the Heritage Impact Statement, as does Heritage Victoria, our statutory authority on heritage, that this proposal is a satisfactory response to the shared history, values and uses of this site, that the impacts can be appropriately managed, and that the Camp Reserve will continue to be special to different people for different reasons. And I'd like to read from the Heritage Impact Statement, one of the concluding paragraphs of the conclusion. In conclusion, as a result of the proposal, there will be impacts on the heritage values of the reserve and the wider precinct. However, the nature and extent of these impacts, as represented in the current form of the proposal, is considered reasonable because the proposed changes would facilitate enhanced ongoing use of the place, which is consistent with the intangible heritage values of the reserve, while also meeting updated requirements associated with each of the local and regional sporting uses of the reserve. Refusal of the proposal would have an impact on the ongoing uses of the reserve, which are part of its heritage significance. I'm almost done, I promise. There are so many other things that have been raised as concerns and that have been taken into consideration. Flood management, obviously, as the site is covered by a flood overlay and a land subject to inundation overlay. And I think many of us will have seen the extent to which flood events affect the Camp Reserve. This application responds to the endorsed master plan, which cites the pavilion and netball courts outside of the overlays. And hydraulic and hydrologic modelling conducted as part of the flood impact assessment and stormwater management strategy demonstrate the proposed works can be undertaken without adverse impacts on neighbouring properties. Modelling also confirms that changes to the site topography within the 1% AEP flood extent will not increase flooding on adjoining properties. And the strategy concludes that the proposed development will have a negligible impact on the site's overall impervious area, resulting in minimal change to existing stormwater volumes and water qualities. There have been concerns raised around amenity, and I think, again, in the huge amount of conditions, one thing that brings me a lot of comfort for the management of amenity, particularly noise, is the inclusion of the need for a patron management plan that really specifies how users of the site will use the site, and that their noise, particularly late at night, particularly leaving, needs to be managed and can be managed by these conditions. There's such a lot more. I can't talk for any more because I'll just run out, but I think in ending, and I have really wrestled with this one because I know how strongly different people feel about different elements of the site. But having done everything I can to get on top of this, and having reflected and having listened and read and done all the things that I feel like I can, I feel that I don't want the preservation of the past to prevent the appropriate use and enjoyment of our public places and spaces. And I believe that this proposal acknowledges the multiple histories, uses and values of the Camp Reserve site, while ensuring it remains a functional space for multiple local recreation users now and into the future, just as Captain Bull envisioned in the 1860s. That's me done. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Anea. Now we have a seconder. Do we have any objectors to this motion or any amendments?
May
Councillor
I have a
Walker.
proposed amendment? Thank you. It's a long amendment to condition 1. It's a full page, which I'll read out, noting that final point G is the key section. So proposal that amendment condition 1 reads, before the development starts, amended plans and documents to the satisfaction of the responsible authority must be submitted to and approved by the responsible authority. When approved, the plans will be endorsed and will then form part of the permit. The plans must be drawn to scale with dimensions and 3 copies must be provided. The plans must be generally in accordance with the advertised plans, Taylor's Tree Retains Sketch Plan dated 18/5/2026, and include 1.1, an amended acoustic report prepared by Enfield Acoustics Noise Vibration Doc reference V1605-01-PR1 dated 18 March 2025. The amended plans and report must A, specify the hours of operations of the social room, including a start and finish time. B, identify acceptable areas, hours, and level of external amplification. C, specify acceptable background level noise. D, include an assessment of security alarms, if any. If security alarms are to be provided, detail on whether they are silent or specify an acceptable noise level must be provided. Once amended, the acoustic report will be endorsed and form part of the permit. E, in conjunction with the amended acoustic report, the plans must be revised to show any treatment or noise attenuation measures recommended in the acoustic report. F, once amended, the acoustic report will be endorsed and form part of the permit. And G, amended plans must include the details shown in the Taylor Tree Retained Sketch Plan dated 15/5/2026 and include the retention of 3 trees identified as Tree 1, Peppercorn Tree, Tree 5, Dutch Elm, Tree 6, Dutch Elm in the Ryder Arborist report. The southern perimeter of the netball court moved north by 18 18.784 metres on the southeast corner and 18.770 metres on the southwest corner. Relocation of the car parking spaces 1 to 10 north of the netball court and consequential reconfiguration of the circulation spaces and vehicle access way. Reduction in size and reconfiguration of the football field to facilitate the retention of the 3 trees. That's the condition. In moving that, I would note that the football field will maintain AFL standards.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Is there a seconder for this amendment? Thanks, Councillor Hastwell. Is there opposition to this amendment? Thanks, Councillor Maltby, Councillor Neer, Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Walker, would you like to speak further to
Sorry, point of order. Isn't with an amended, hasn't have to go pass through the mover and the seconder?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Right, you are. So, given there was opposition, yeah, thank you. So, to the original mover and seconder, which is Councillors Neer and Maltby, is this amendment acceptable to you? No. Okay. So, thank you. So, Councillor Walker, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, actually, sorry, before you do, I just want to clarify something. The print on that map is rather small. So just for clarity, the Taylor's Tree retained sketch plan is dated 18 of the 5th, 2026, not 15 of the 5th, 2026. Actually 18. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. In her presentation, Councillor Neer stated that she does not take this matter lightly. She spent a lot of time looking into it and that she's elected to represent the whole Shire. Of my dealings with Councillor Neer, I certainly know that she does do that and I respect her for that, and I trust that she feels the same about us. The reason we are debating this so intensely is because we do care very much for it. In this situation, it is an attempt to preserve some of the flora of the park, sort of heritage trees that are extremely important, and also helps to retain the appearance, the original heritage appearance, by them not being removed, by staying there on the perimeter fence. So it allows the netball court, and agree there must be 2 courts and they must be in good condition and they are accessible to the change rooms. So it enables them to proceed while we keep those very important trees there. And at the same time, as I said, the football field will continue to meet AFL standards. So it suggests it's a minor amendment which can accommodate a whole range of community interests around preservation of the heritage while all the sporting activities can go ahead.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Councillor Hastwell, would you like to speak now or reserve your right? Okay. Councillor Maltby, I think you were first cab off the rank.
The heritage impact statement has some recommendations about planting new trees to replace the ones that are the 3 trees that are going to have to go, and maybe the other 2 red gums. So it is being dealt with and looked after. The other point that Councillor Walker mentions, that the oval will still be in AFL standards, it's actually taking 15 metres off the oval that is used for cricket and football at the moment and other activities. To reduce 15 metres of an oval is not in my idea. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Maltby. Any other councillors? Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, understand what Councillor Walker's amendment is proposing to do, but really it's not a minor amendment. Basically, it goes against these issues, the location of the netball court and the trees, and possibility of shortening the oval or changing the shape of the oval. That was all covered off in the development of the master plan. So I see this amendment as actually something totally different to what what is approved. We have an approved master plan. It's been before previous council twice, and yeah, this is not a minor amendment, this proposal, and yeah, realistically, it's not very satisfactory. And you know, we debated at length the opportunity to reshape the oval and change the oval, but you know, the history of AFL being played, or Australian rules football and cricket, it goes back a long time, and yeah, it's just totally unacceptable to reduce the length of the ground. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Any other councillors like to speak in favour of this? Councillor Maddock.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Yeah, just really underlining the advice that this would keep it in line with AFL guidelines, and that while my councillor colleagues, some of them have spoken passionately against that, I don't think that's based on something substantive. I understand from advice that the reason why this wasn't explored previously is it wasn't in the current master plan. So Cordy's right; it was established in the last master plan. So it was a restriction on the design. These master plans aren't written in stone. We're the deciding body here. We can make adjustments to them. It was a previous council who made those decisions for the previous master plan. I think we are well within our rights to make this change. And I think the spirit in which this has been developed and shared is around trying to find something that's more acceptable to more members of the community. I think this is, and it's a real shame that this is so divisive in our community and has inspired such strong and widespread backlash. And I don't think it's wholly necessary, but I think it's a shame because something like this should be acceptable, and we should be able to find designs and compromises that bring at least most of the community along, if not the whole community. I'll speak to that more when we're talking about the substantive motion, but I think that this is a relatively small gesture which seeks to address some very minor concerns raised by some of the objectors. The trees that are saved, the peppercorn tree, my kids have played in many, many times at the farmers market there. It's often full of kids. I'm talking like 5 to 10 kids, literally full. People have really strong relationships with trees. I don't think we should undervalue what it means to some of the community by retaining even 3 of the many trees that are being demolished as part of this. So I think it's a good gesture. I don't think it's taking anything substantial away, and I would hope that this gets up in that spirit. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Malik. Any councillors like to speak against this motion? Councillor Anea.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think I would like to seek some clarity on some aspects of what we're debating now. So Councillor Maddock has just said we are well within our rights to make these changes to the master plan. I was under the opinion that today we are discussing a planning matter on which we need to make a decision and not the master plan. And in fact, I don't think we are well within our rights to make changes to the master plan in this forum as part of this decision. And I would like some clarity on whether or not this is the forum for making those changes.
Thanks, Councillor Anea. We are assessing a planning permit, you're right. However, Councillor Maddock's amendment, I think, can be considered. Any other councillors like to speak for or against?
Sorry, Mayor,
Sorry.
If that was my question, I haven't finished.
Oh, I beg your pardon. No, Councillor Anea, please. Sorry, please.
May I clarify my intention for raising that and why I think that's relevant to this debate?
Hang on, we'll just hear from Councillor Anea, please.
I think it's such a tough one, and I think again, I have I have a lot of what we're talking about here tonight is respecting things that have come before and respecting heritage and respecting history. And yet I note that what we're talking about is effectively dishonouring the decisions of two previous councils, which doesn't sit super well with me, if I'm honest. I understand the need for flexibility, but this does feel like changing an endorsed master plan by stealth at the 11th hour. And there is something about that that makes me feel very uncomfortable, particularly when the motion that was carried in 2020 includes the wording that the oval length is to be retained with the shape of the playing surface to be reviewed. And I understand that, yes, of course we can go back and change decisions and undo decisions, but the fact that those specific words were included in what is a relatively short motion makes me feel that the council of the time decided that for a reason. The council under that decided to endorse the master plan for a reason. And I do feel uncomfortable that we are using this planning forum to what I believe is make changes to the master plan. It does not sit well with me. I think that is a separate process and one that I would be willing to enter into, but I feel that this is not the time for that, and that we would not entertain that for other planning permits that we assess. So I think that is what is causing me the most discomfort for this particular amendment, that it does not feel to be in the spirit of what we are deciding today. And it does essentially seek to change the master plan endorsed by two previous councils by stealth. It feels disrespectful to those previous councils who, again, put time and energy and stress into making those decisions. And I do not feel that this is the proper way that we should be making that decision. It is a conversation that I would be absolutely open to, but it does not feel like it should be now during what is a planning matter. And I think that's why I feel uncomfortable supporting it.
Thanks, Councillor Nair. Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Walker, for your amendment. But as Councillor Cordy mentioned a couple of times, so we've lived and breathed this for nearly on 6 years now. I just saw this amendment 5 minutes ago before the meeting started. I think it's fraught with danger making amendments on the fly. I don't think that's a good planning outcome. So I do not accept that amendment, and that's why I'm against it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Hastwell to speak now.
Yeah, thanks very much. And there are lots of feelings in the room. There are people who feel that it's inappropriate to revisit the master plan. There are people who feel that this may be disrespectful to previous councillors, and there are also people who feel very concerned about the fact that this proposal is still quite divisive in the community. So acknowledging there are lots of feelings, and it is an interesting conversation around subjectivity. My view of heritage and the stories that we share and the values that we attribute to places is that they are subjective. And I don't see that in any way as diminishing the importance. I think the line between what is objective reality and what is subjective reality. Anyway, we're probably getting into an after council meeting debate now. But in all seriousness, I also agree to an extent with my colleagues, Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Driscoll, that in some ways it feels very uncomfortable to be having these debates in the context of this meeting. It also is a very unusual circumstance for such a significant planning application to come to a group of councillors, half of whom have been very actively involved in the history of the master plan and the further developments, and also half of the present councillor group bringing, I guess, fresh perspectives and being, I believe, in no way disrespectful to previous councillors, but with a responsibility to look at this through multiple lenses. I will speak then to my support for the amendment in relation to the netball courts. So I will mention, that the user groups of the reserve, and in particular the sporting clubs and the agricultural show, have expressed strong support for the application, which recognises and provides for their needs and aspirations. And there is no doubt, and this has been stated already by others, that there is a need for upgraded and expanded facilities at the site. And this is also acknowledged by the vast majority of objectors. The very long backstory to this project, and still we remain with a contentious proposal within the community. There have, of course, been extensive referrals, and Councillor Anir has referred to those. And at the same time, this would not be the first time that councillors, current councillors, all of us, at some stage have challenged specific areas of advice or recommendation. That is our role. I'm cognizant of the very strong level of support that has been demonstrated, including 92 letters of support. I'm also very cognizant of the 82 or more objections that have been submitted, and these are summarised in the report, and were also represented at the recent applicant supporter objector meeting. There were 67 objections on the basis of heritage, 75 on environmental impact, and 37 in regard to poor consultation with groups and interests outside of the current sporting and key user groups.
Excuse me, councillor, just pertinent to this amendment, please.
So in particular, the southwest corner of the site, this is the area of the site that currently is designated for the netball courts. The particular corner of the site, which is known as the Hill, and the area totals approximately 1 hectare and has particular significance. It's of topographical interest from a heritage perspective, and is also the prime area of concern in terms of landscape character and spatial qualities. The arborist's report identifies, I think it's 6 trees in this area, which are significant for their high retention value. This means that the tree is a mature specimen in fair to good condition with a useful life expectancy of at least 10 years. Is suitable to the site and should be retained in a new development. Those are words quoted from the arborist report. Coming to the netball courts, due to the choice of this site for significant development for new and expanded netball courts with associated infrastructure, the application proposes to remove 6 high retention trees, including 2 Red River gums, which are central to the site, prominent to the view into the site from the outside, and are likely to be indigenous.
The river red gums are not the trees that we're discussing and in this amendment.
Correct. Thank you. That's part of the context of the site, which is where the netball courts are. So they are of the 6 trees. The amendment would spare not the Red River gums, but I think it's 4. Am I right? 3 or 4 of the other high retention trees. So I'm putting this in the context of what is proposed currently is a significant loss of high retention value trees. The current siting of the netball courts at the front entrance to the reserve is seen as a way of, and I quote from one of these supporters, sending a message that women's sport is valued. And there are acknowledged challenges to accommodating the expanded netball facilities elsewhere. However, I believe that there needs to be a balance struck, and this is why I'm supporting the proposed amendment. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor Hesserell. Councillor Walker, you have a right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor. That some of the batters in cricket wouldn't actually mind a shorter field to have a bat through. I don't consider this to be a major change. I think it's a small change to help bring people on board and take things forward in a way that does preserve the heritage and does meet all the needs and requirements. And it's a way to do it without, in fact, rejecting the whole permit, which means then rejecting the master plan and going back to the whole master plan. I don't think that's something that anybody really wants to do. We do respect the work that previous councillors have done, I'm saying this is just a minor tweaking to preserve a few trees, and it's nice to say new trees are being planted, but we all know how long they take to grow, that these are established trees where the sports facility can continue, but there are amenities for other people as well as retaining their heritage value, and therefore I request people support it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. And thank you, councillors, for your fulsome, thorough comments on this. So let's put this amendment to the vote. All those in favour of this amendment and against? And we're tied. So I'm going to use my casting vote to vote in favour of the amendment. So the amendment is carried, and we return to the substantive motion with that amendment included.
I'd like to propose some further amendments.
Just a sec, did you have one?
Division.
Sure. So a call for a division. So on the final vote, those in favour of the amendment, those against the amendment, then the casting vote in favour of the amendment. Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. So before we get back, Councillor Maddock, did you say you had another amendment you want to propose?
Yeah, I do actually have two, but I'm happy to bundle them together just for the sake of expediency, because I'm sure we're talking about amendments and would like to get the substantive motion. So briefly, if I could.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's amendment to 9.1.1.37 so the proposal is that there's no fewer than 6 bicycle racks. I propose there's no fewer than 20 bicycle parking spaces. Sorry, no fewer than 20 bicycle parking spaces must be provided on the land to the satisfaction of the reasonable authority. So just to clarify, that's an increase from 6 to 20.
From a minimum of 6.
Minimum of 6 to a minimum of 20. And I'm sorry, rolling them in. So the second one is 9.1.1.16, which is, and I'll highlight where the change is because it's not for 3 lines. Preparation of a tree maintenance plan for the site that addresses the following: a succession tree replacement and planting program for Monterey cypresses, river red gums, English oaks, and any other trees with identified heritage significance or of high retention value on site. B, propagation opportunities and recommendations for significant trees. And then this is my amendment here, including seed collection prior to the removal of the river red gums for the germination and propagation of succession trees.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Do we have a seconder for this? Councillor Walker, thank you. Any opposition to this? Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Maddock, would you like to speak further?
And this should be the
I beg your pardon. Once again,
have
sorry.
opportunity first.
Yeah, thanks, Chief.
I accept this amendment to the substantive motion.
Councillor Maltby.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so these amendments are then folded in with the substantive
Talking
motion.
after the trees.
Yep. And bicycle parking spaces. So we return to Councillor Andy. I think it's
I think I did mine.
yeah.
honestly.
So Councillor Moulton, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Thanks, Mayor. Right, we've had very massive debate. Fortunately, the majority hasn't altered the master plan or deferred it. As I mentioned earlier, the trees that were then added into the motion were actually in the heritage recommendations anyway. And those 2 red gums, I would suggest that the Director Anita could confirm, but they're already an issue with health. And they won't be original, they'll be seeded from the original plants in the 1850s. But let's keep moving and see if we can finally get this started and funded.
Thanks, Councillor Maltby. Any councillors like to speak against this I'll speak for Councillor Maddock.
Thank you. And I'll just speak briefly because I don't want to go over points. I think just in concluding, and we often see this in planning where there are just better design solutions available, and I feel that really strongly with this. I think what we have is, and I watched the original motion. Well, it wasn't the original motion; it was the 2020 motion debate in this chamber with the previous council, and what we had were changes to the officer recommendations. Then, really highly favouring certain user groups of the camp reserve, and to the exclusion of others. What we have is, I think, a proposal that fits the needs and desires of these groups very succinctly and is quite unsatisfying to many others in the community. And I think this is really not an ideal situation. I think we have the ability to do better in this design, and we have the ability to bring more people along. I just wanted to read from the Heritage Impact Report, and this is 3.3.1, what needs to be conserved from the viewpoint of the heritage consultants here. The following aspects of the reserve.
Is this an amendment? We're back to the substantive motion.
The following aspects of the reserve as a whole: the landscape qualities of the place, its topography and landform, including the hill in the southwest corner, the reserve, including the individual trees and groups of trees, and specifically noting mature trees at the southern end of the reserve being the 2 river red gums. These are really explicit things that are noted in this Heritage Impact Report, and these are the things that will be adversely impacted by this design. I think it's unnecessary, and I'm a bit upset that we're given something that is so divisive and so unpopular when there are other options available to us. So I'll be voting against this planning permit, and I really encourage other people to. I think this is a big decision. We need to get it right, and if it takes another revisit of the master plan and another planning application process, so be it. I think it's better to do it now, get it popular, and we'll have a better chance of getting funding if it's popular. And I think I agree with not wanting to change things at the 11th hour, but this is literally our last chance.
Councillor Manning, any councillors like to speak in favour of the motion? Councillor Walker.
Yes, Mayor, very briefly, and I take on board Councillor Maddock's comments. Basically, I want to say, I think since the election in 2014, this is probably the most intense debate we've had as councillors, and not just in this forum leading up to it.
Since 2024.
24, okay. When did I say?
14.
Oh, no, I feel like I've been here that long already. I just wanted to say thank you to the other councillors that the very different views that we presented, but we've done so with respect to each other and appreciation. It has been a compromise. I have some sympathies for Councillor Maddock, but I think if we've reached this compromise, then let's take that and move forward. And I think maybe in a few months there's a few more of these intense debates, and I hope that we can continue to have them in the same respectful way. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Any other councillors like to speak for it? This is Councillor Corey.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, the way I see it is the amendment that we have before us. So the motion before it is basically kills the endorsed master plan. I'm not a member of the sporting clubs that use the oval, but I'm pretty sure the clubs would not support what is before us, and certainly picking that up in the gallery.
Point of order. Yeah, perhaps.
It's a total
Sorry, colleagues, point of order.
Point of order. Could I just clarify that we're talking about a substantive motion now, that this has already been defeated?
Yeah.
And that what we're discussing now
I'm
Is-
talking about the substantive motion,
apologies.
which has basically been amended, and it's a stuff up. And the sporting clubs haven't been consulted about this amendment. They don't support it. They're never going to support it. And what we have before us now, I'm not able to support because of the reduction in space of the playing surface proposed. So that's where I'm sit. Excuse me, let me finish. Not able to support it, Mayor, because it's a disaster. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Corey. Councillor May, get a point of order.
Could I please just clarify, are you saying the entire Camp Reserve Master Plan is a disaster or this amendment that you're holding?
This amendment destroys the master plan, and I'm sure the clubs haven't been consulted on what's before us now, and I certainly don't support it.
Thanks, Councillor Corey. Any other councillors like to speak for or against this motion? Councillor Haswell.
Thanks, Mayor. And yeah, so I just want to zoom out for a moment in terms of the broader values that we bring to this contentious issue. The report refers to the previous council plan, 21 to 25, as relevant values and priorities for council in relation to this proposal. I'd like to add to that, or I guess update it in terms of the current council plan 2025 to 2029, which is not actually referenced in the report we have before us. The current council plan clearly outlines the council's strategic direction and priorities for the next 4 years, aligned with the community vision, informed by extensive community consultation during 25, where council asked the community what matters to them now and into the future. 1,100 residents from all over the Shire provided feedback, which helped to shape the plan. I'm just going to highlight a couple of the commitments in our current council plan, which I think are really quite relevant to the discussion we've had tonight. One of the key objectives under the theme of infrastructure is that built cultural and natural heritage is safeguarded and celebrated. Under the objective of a Shire that understands and cares for our environment, Council has committed to the strategic priority of enhancing recognition and protection of trees, including significant trees. Another of the plan's objectives is accessible, safe and inclusive infrastructure for all ages and backgrounds. And while the proposal before us certainly considers closely the accessibility, safety and inclusivity of the existing organised sporting groups and associated community at Camp Reserve, I'm not convinced that it meets the strategic priority of apply best practice in planning and design to enhance community spaces and protect heritage, environment and people. And so on this basis, I won't be supporting the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Haswell. Any other councillors like to speak for or against this motion?
So I was supportive of the original recommendation, and they would have had this creation of the open, which was supported. Yet we haven't gone back to the groups for discussion. So I'm a bit in Councillor Corey's camp where, in my opinion, we've changed. We're making amendments on the fly, which I don't agree with. I think this hasn't been looked into enough, and I think lots of the groups who supported the original amendment, I did support, will not support this, so I do not support this as such now. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Rosie, your right of reply, Councillor Neil.
All right, thank you, everyone. It's, you know, it's nice to have a decent debate with all of you. I do feel very lucky to have you all as colleagues, and that we do have the ability to have such opposing views at times, but still work together as a team. And I think that's it's reflective of the fact that we are, you know, different people representing different areas of community. And I think, you know, in many ways that reassures me, because I can't imagine how dull it would be if we all thought the same all the time. And it would not be reflective of our entire community if we were always in agreement. So in that way, you know, I think this has been a fantastic debate, and it's been, you know, it is really good to listen to everyone. I think as a couple of us have expressed discomfort with an amendment that has now forms part of the substantive motion, and both Councillor Cordy and Councillor Driscoll have expressed in their opinion it does significantly change the proposal and the master plan. I'm inclined to agree. I think there was an assertion made before around, you know, some people in the room not wanting to revisit the master plan, and others wanting to find a better outcome where everyone agrees. And again, I feel like that's an unfair assessment of my position here, because I would be happy to revisit the master plan if I felt that this was the appropriate forum for that, which again, I do not. I think that by modifying the master plan as part of a planning permit prepared for the endorsed master plan is bad governance. I really do. It makes me feel very uncomfortable. So in the next minute or so, I will be also considering whether or not I'm looking to support the motion as it stands now, because I feel very uncomfortable with what I believe is changes to the master plan by stealth. I think I would be more than happy to have that conversation in the appropriate forum, which I do not believe this is. And, you know, I understand that we feel differently about that, but to me, that is not good process. That is not fair process. We have not consulted with people on this. It is something we've just come up with on our own. I feel like that is very unfair, and we're not doing our jobs appropriately as councillors, because I feel that we are putting what we think before what other people think, and that makes me uncomfortable. It also makes me a bit uncomfortable, honestly, that we are purporting to have more expertise potentially than the heritage consultants who prepared this much debated report. And, you know, because I'm a curious person by nature, I had a look into these people. So 4 authors were involved in the preparation of this report, all working for GML, which again is a nationally recognised and highly regarded heritage consultancy. Between them, they have 80 years of heritage experience. 2 of them are doctors who specialise in heritage. We have a landscape heritage specialist who is a principal of the company. We have an associate with long-standing, who has been given long-standing heritage advice to local governments. One of the authors is the head of Victoria for GML, also an archaeologist and cultural heritage expert. And the final member is a doctor, a historian and well-respected heritage assessor for the 25 years plus, who is a history member of the Heritage Council of Victoria. It worries me that we sit around this table and potentially express that we may know more than these experts. It also worries me that the statutory body responsible for heritage in the state of Victoria, not very creatively called Heritage Victoria, they have assessed this application at length and have deemed it acceptable, subject to conditions, of which there are many. I will also note that in the course of
the development of the master plan and the development of this planning permit, that a nomination was made for the site for the Victorian Heritage Register, which would indicate that the site has state level significance of a heritage nature. It was unsuccessful in being added to the register, and this decision was upheld when there was asked, the Heritage Council was asked to to relook, I guess, at the decision, and it was again not found to, and in fact it says in here that on the basis of what was provided and further investigations, the Heritage Council found that there is no evidence that the place is significant at the state level, which of course is not to say it is not significant at a local level. We know that it was not deemed to be of state heritage significance, but it was added to the Victorian Heritage Inventory as a site of potential archaeological significance. What this meant was, relatively thorough archaeological excavations of aspects of the site which were carried out, which have been carried out, some of them, but there's also a whole lot more to do, and the conditions around these further potential archaeological assessments and what to do if artefacts are found in terms of conservation and management, recording, and ensuring that if anything of state level value is discovered, that changes will need to be made and these will need to be managed appropriately. It bothers me. I think that we can sit here and look, I mean, maybe it shouldn't, because we are all allowed to have our feelings about things, but I feel if we're not going to give respect and trust to particularly Heritage Victoria, particularly the Heritage Council of Victoria, who are responsible at the end of the day for making decisions about state level heritage significance. I feel like if we're going to sit here and say that the heritage impact statement and assessment is not good enough, even though it's been undertaken by these pretty experienced and well-regarded heritage experts, that bothers me. And I think that the fact that we're trying to change an adopted master plan by stealth is bad governance, and I feel very uncomfortable about it. So I still haven't made up my mind about what I'm going to do, but I don't know, it's not feeling very good. I understand why we've come to this place, and that, yeah, I think a lot of people would like to go back and have another crack at the master plan. I just don't know. I don't know how much more, I don't know how much more time, energy, effort we can do this for. How long do we do this for? Do we just do it until we get the answers that we want? There's been such a lot of criticism around consultation and not listening well enough. And I do understand that to some extent, but at the same time, I feel like, and again, speaking just for myself, I could not have listened any more than I have. I could not have done more. And the feeling that I often get, and we hear this so much, because what I've learned on council, particularly with planning decisions, is that no matter what we decide, people will be upset, frustrated, angry. People will think that we are wrong, and and often will tell us that we're wrong, and it's a lot to carry. I think that it's tricky, because community consultation is a nice word, and I think people interpret it to mean different things. It's not always going to mean that council ends up doing exactly what you want. That is unreasonable to expect that every person who has an opinion, their opinion will be supported in full. But what we do is we listen to the whole thing, and we try and sift through it, and we try and make the best decision we possibly can with the information in front of us for the whole community. That's what I feel like I'm doing. I don't feel that great right now. This is a lot. But I am confident that I have done my best with what is in front of me to make a decision on this planning permit, not on the master plan. That should not be what we're discussing, on this permit. And that is why, I don't know what I'm going to do in a minute, but I would still approve. Even with the amendments, I still think that there has been demonstrated. Look at all of this. Like, do we just not trust anyone now? What do we, yeah, I better wrap up now. I'm losing it a bit.
It's going to be a long night. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, councillor Neil. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if this is passed, what happens next? Do the staff have to get approval to alter the master plan?
I'll ask the chief to respond to that.
Mayor, if the motion fails, as in the permit application fails, then at some time the officers will come back to you and ask you, what would you like us to do about that? The permit application fails, and that's the matter that you're considering tonight. Implications for the master plan and rework of that potentially is a matter for another day. Seek your direction on that. We would be able to proceed. Thank you.
Okay, then let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? And against? And so the motion is defeated.
For a division, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. So again, all those in favour? And against? Thank you, councillors. Thanks for the fulsome discussion on that. Not much to add, except one point to pick up on something that councillor Haswell spoke to earlier about history and heritage, and I can add to that by saying history really is that relationship between the present and the past. And to touch on one of Councillor Neil's comments earlier, yeah, we often agree on history, we often don't agree too, and part of that relationship of the present and the past is that with each generation of historians, people who experience a place, there's a new relationship between the present and the past. So just to affirm Councillor Neil, Councillor Haswell's position earlier that history is not fixed, as it were. These are difficult topics because we all, as Councillor Neil and Councillor Walker and Councillor Mather outlined earlier, we all bring very different views to the table. And this will come back. At some point, we will receive more advice on this matter. So 9.2.1, community grants. Councillor Walker, can I ask you to introduce the bills?
Yes, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide council with the outcomes of the Community Grants Program 2026 Round 1, to outline the assessment process undertaken by council officers for the allocation of funds. So I'd like to move the council notes the allocation of funding for the Community Grants Program 2026 Round 1 being 18 applications for a total allocation of $48,537.50.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Do we have a second of this? Thanks, Councillor Mayor. Councillor Walker, would you like to speak further to this?
Yes, Mayor, I think the grants program is a very good initiative of council. I'm very pleased that we are able to do something, particularly in a tight funding environment, to support communities. There were 32 eligible applications received. Unfortunately, council was not in a position to fund them all. 18 were successful. The allocations were assessed of 25% of the alignment with council plans and strategies, 50% with the needs, benefits of the project to the community, and 25% ability to plan and deliver the project. I don't propose to read out all the successful applicants, but to congratulate them and to request that we can endorse the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Vanek, would you like to speak now, or is it right?
Only really briefly to say I think the community grants program is excellent, and these relatively small funds can have a massive enabling effect on the organisations that apply for them. There's some really good organisations and projects in there, and I just encourage others to apply where relevant. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors like to speak on this? Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Mayor. Sometimes I hear that council can be sometimes Castlemaine centric, but I just want to point out that in these recent grants here that there's been a lot of grants run by organisations not within the sort of city of Castlemaine, so out of the outer ward, which I'm pleased with.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Ian.
Thank you, Mayor. I was also struck by what Councillor Driscoll said and noted the kind of geographical breadth of these projects throughout the Shire. And also, you know, the really wide range of projects and what they're covering. You know, there's some for equipment, there's some for events. There's lots of kind of, you know, relatively localised small projects that will be of benefit to their specific areas, but there's also quite a few very broad kind of Shire-wide projects proposed. And I think every time we get to see the community grants, the successful applicants and also the event grants, because councillors obviously are not involved in the decision making around this. It's done by a panel of officers. So, you know, we're always quite excited to see what is funded as well. But I think every time I see them, it's really, you know, it's one of those quite joyful council moments when you see, you know, what are often quite small things. You know, none of these are above $3,000, but that can mean such a lot to some of these small clubs, to some of these small communities. I just think it's a really great thing that council is able to do, and I'm always excited to see what projects are funded, and then excited again when the projects come to fruition. And I think it doesn't happen enough, but I always love it when the organisations or individuals who propose the projects kind of feed back to us how their projects went, or, you know, invite us along, or in some way let us know what the impact of this funding was. And it's just always great. And as usual, I'm excited to see many of these come to fruition. I think it's fantastic. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other? Yes, Councillor Haswell.
I am going to give into the temptation to read out the names of some of these projects, because again, I agree. It doesn't surprise me that there's a lot of energy and a lot of initiative coming from across the Shire, because we know that all across the Shire we have really creative, vibrant, committed communities. And it is very much reflected in this list. And you know, as Councillor O'Neill was mentioning, these are small grants. They're $3,000 or less. Amazing what communities can do with $3,000 or less. I'm just going to pick out a few because I think it gives some colour, you know, it brings to life what some of the things that are going on. So we've got Muckleford in there, and we've got Castlemaine. We've got Campbell's Creek, we've got Metcalfe, Elphinstone, we've got several projects coming from Harcourt, fantastic to see, Castlemaine, of course, Guildford, etc. So it's really great to see. And just in terms of the project titles, I'm deliberately not kind of identifying them with location, but this gives you a bit of a sense of the kinds of things: cricket pitch covers and accessories, the love confirmation, defibrillators, theatre, homes for native wildlife, play groups, bushfire public awareness, sustainability, Indigenous worldview training, and volunteer connection and storytelling. Another one that caught my eye. Yeah, there's another one here. Rural GBT men's health seminars, living and aging well as rural GBT men. So congratulations to all of those groups. And yeah, we really look forward to hearing more about how some of these projects go.
Thanks, Councillor. Anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Walker. Fine.
Mayor, I just thank and endorse the other councillors for their comments and for highlighting those issues.
Okay, let's move to the vote then. All those in favour and against, that's carried. So we have nothing under 9.3, so we move on to 9.4, infrastructure. Councillor Cordy, would you introduce this, please?
Thanks, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present the draft industrial strategy and draft industrial design guidelines for adoption. The industrial strategy and industrial design guidelines together provide a clear framework to guide how industrial land is planned, developed and managed across the Shire. The strategy sets out the long-term direction for industrial growth, including where potential future industrial land locations should be explored, how existing areas are protected, and how land use conflicts are managed. The guidelines support this by informing the design and layout of industrial development to ensure it is functional, sustainable, and responsive to its surroundings. Together, these documents will guide future planning decisions, including planning scheme amendments, permit assessments, and council investment priorities. Throughout the 5-week consultation period in September and October of 2025, our input was gathered from local residents, businesses, and key stakeholders. Feedback received has informed a series of updates to both draft documents, ensuring that the finalised versions reflect the community's aspirations and industry needs. And Mayor, I'd like to move the recommendation as printed. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. We have a seconder for this. Thanks, Councillor Aswell. Any opposition? Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak further to this?
I think we're pretty well covered, Mayor. This document's a great document, and it really sets the scene for industrial land use planning and construction throughout the Shire. And if you delve into the document, you'll see existing industrial areas identified. And yeah, it's a way we try to have sufficient land for industrial development while trying to manage conflict with general residential areas. So I'm very happy to support this document. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Hass, would you want to speak now or reserve your right?
Thanks, Mayor. I'll speak now. Thanks, Councillor Cordy. I think that does give a pretty strong introduction and overview of this strategy. I'd just also like to acknowledge that what an important comprehensive study and draft strategy we have before us. I would particularly also like to acknowledge the extraordinary work that our officers have put into this and mention specifically Strategic Planner Imogen Douglas and the rest of the team that has been involved with the development of the strategy, and of course the responsible director, Michael Lanier, Director, Infrastructure and Development. It is a very significant piece of work, and will really, I think, set us up for some very important aspects of economic development. I'd also like to just thank those local businesses, community members and landholders who have participated with such goodwill in the consultation and have played an important role in the process to date. All of these moving parts, if you like, of our community and our organisation working together is what makes a great strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Cordy, you've got to wait.
Just briefly, Mayor, I'd also like to acknowledge Councillor Driscoll. He's over several years advocated for work in industrial land strategy. So well done, Councillor Driscoll. You'll be happy with this document. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Woody. So we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. So moving on to 9.4.2. Councillor Driscoll, can I ask you to introduce this, please?
Thanks, Mayor. This report presents the findings of the Newstead flood study and asks Council to note the study outputs and endorsements and preferred mitigation response. The study provides a clear basis for improving flood resilience, emergency preparedness and long-term land use planning for Newstead. Following modelling, peer review, community consultation and cost benefit assessments, Council officers recommended to proceed with the detailed design of mitigation option 6, raising, extending and realigning the levy. This option provides the greatest overall benefit, protecting 90 properties from the above floor flooding, delivering the largest cost benefit and receiving the strongest community support. The report also presents related outputs, including the flood intelligence report, flood warning assessment report and draft planning overlay material to inform a future planning scheme amendment. If the recommendation mitigation option is endorsed, the next phase will be detailed design of the preferred mitigation option, supported by existing project funding and followed by efforts to secure external funding for the construction. Council officers will also continue community communication and to progress action under the flood study outputs. And Mayor, I'd like to recommend the as approved.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thanks, Councillor Lobby. Any opposition? Councillor Driscoll, let's speak further to this.
Yes, I will. Thanks, Mayor. This is to do with Newstead, obviously, which is actually located on the Loddon River, and the geography of the area has resulted in a history of riverine flooding. While anecdotal flood information does exist for Newstead based on historic flood events and recorded flood levels, older residents, no detailed flood study has been previously undertaken. Some of the recent notable major storm events have occurred in 2010, 2011, 2016 and 2022. Now the levy's been fantastic for a period of time, for quite a long time actually, and it's protected the township of Newstead from riverine flooding from the Loddon River. Although past major floods have not substantially overtopped the levy, a lot of that work was done by the residents and the council. So minor overtopping did occur in 2011, and the extensive resources were needed in October 22 to prevent failure. The risk assessment was performed, found that the levy is vulnerable to failure such as overtopping, slopping of banks, piping, seeping through the foundation and issues such as that. And in 2023, we secured some funding from the North Central Catchment Management Authority and the federal government disaster ready fund to undertake a flood study and mitigation strategy for Newstead. So this is what this is. So this is just the next. I would ask councillors to support this so we can keep moving forward with this flood study, and then eventually to actually get some funds to repair and improve the Newstead levy. Thanks, Mayor.
Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Lobby. Okay, any other councillors like to speak? That's well.
Thanks, Mayor. I just had an area of clarification that I'd like to seek from Director Anir. It's in relation to an email from a resident, a Newstead resident, who has highlighted that that the option that we are looking at tonight is understood to worsen flood outcomes for 9 specifically identifiable homes, including by causing above floor flooding. And I'd just ask Director Anir to clarify, if you could please, how those affected residents have been communicated with in terms of the impacts on their properties.
Thank you, Mayor. So there's been extensive communication with members across all of Newstead Township, including the properties that are adversely affected as identified, to share the information and answer questions that they had asked through either the community meetings or in-person meetings with the individuals as we've gone forward.
Thank you, Director. So just to clarify, those impacted, the owners of impacted properties have been reached out to individually.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Director. Thanks, Councillor O'Neill. Any other councillors like to speak to this? That's recording.
Just briefly, Mayor, I'd just acknowledge the work that has been done around community consultation on the flood modelling and the options, and certainly that the final recommendation has been modified or tweaked in response to community requests, and I think I'd like to acknowledge Director Anier's work for coordinating that. So well done. And sometimes they're very difficult issues to communicate in the community. If people, that if you live in a flood zone, you probably know your house is subject to flooding, so it's pretty easy to get emotional and upset about it. So thanks for your fine work, Director Anier.
Thanks, Councillor Corey. Anyone else like to? Councillor O'Neill?
I think I'd just like to follow up on the queries from Councillor Hastwell around the 9 properties that will experience above the floor flooding. Just to restate that all of these properties already experience above the floor level flooding in conditions in the 1% AEP event. So council is not in fact causing that above floor flooding, They are already experiencing that because of their proximity to a river, unfortunately. So, and this proposal, out of all of them, manages to prevent the most number of properties from experiencing that above floor flooding, around 90. I just wanted to clarify that because I think it would be very easy to assume that council was causing that flooding, and in fact, they're flooding already, and I think that's important to note in the situation. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Neill. Would any other councillors like to speak on this? Councillor Driscoll, you're allowed to reply.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor O'Neill, for putting that out. So look, if council will vote on this, the best outcome we can get. Hopefully with a few more tweaks, that may be even more improvement, but we need to move on to this, keep going, so we can get some actual funding to actually do, because there's still a lot more houses at risk as we stand right now. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. So let's move to the vote. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. And like many other councillors, I've been fortunate to attend the public information sessions, and I want to congratulate Director Anier for his work on this, as other councillors have, but also Phil Garner and Rana and all the team. It's been sensational, and these, as Councillor Driscoll pointed out, these are not easy or quick processes and decisions, and it's been really great to be part of these community consultations in the last few months, and to see the kinds of responses from the community, but also the level of analysis that we've been fortunate to receive in the form of reports. So 9.4.3, Councillor Hastwell, would you like to introduce this one, please?
Thank you, Mayor. And this one's a real privilege to introduce. So the purpose of this report, Indigenous naming of Campbell's Creek Trail, is to seek Council's endorsement for formally naming the 4.3 kilometre off-road trail from Campbell's Creek Park to Camp Reserve in Castlemaine as Watcharanka, meaning platypus track in Djadjawurrung or Jarrah language. The name reflects the cultural significance of the area and supports Council's ongoing commitment to recognising traditional owners and incorporating First Nations language into public place naming. The proposal has been developed in accordance with the naming rules for places in Victoria, statutory requirements for naming roads, features and localities 2022. Council has received in principle support from JARA through the provision of the name and in principle support from Geographic Names Victoria or GNV for its submission. Council received overwhelming support from the community on the proposal to naming the trail. Subject to final approval from Geographic Names Victoria, the adoption of the name Watchurung Baring will formally recognise the cultural heritage of the Dja Dja Wurrung people and strengthen the visibility of First Nations language within our region.
Thank you, councillor. And do I have a motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, I will read the motion, which is not a very long motion, so I'll read it out in full. So I move that Council 1 endorses the use of Watchurung Baring as the formal name for the trail adjacent to Campbell's Creek between Campbell's Creek Park and Camp Reserve in Castlemaine. And 2, approves the submission of Watchurung Baring as the formal name for the trail adjacent to Campbell's Creek between Campbell's Creek Park and Camp Reserve in Castlemaine to Geographic Names Victoria for consideration and approval.
Thank you, councillor Aswell. We have a second there. Thanks, councillor Merrick. Any objections? Councillor Haswell, would you like to speak further to this?
Thanks, Mary. So I'll just give a little bit of context. So as many people will be familiar, in 2025, Council completed works to connect 2 sections of Old Road Trail that follows the alignment of Campbell's Creek, the 4.3 kilometre trail between Campbell's Creek Park and Camp Reserve in Castlemaine has become an increasingly significant recreational and active transport corridor for the local community since being completed. Councillors were briefed on the project and supported the proposal to consult on the trail naming in early 2024, reflecting Council's broader commitment to recognising traditional owner language and cultural heritage in public spaces. The proposed renaming of the trail further aligns with Council's reconciliation priorities and supports greater visibility of traditional owner language across the municipality. And the exploration of the naming of the trail was identified and agreed to under the Lua Agreement as part of the recently completed section.
Councillor Haswell. Councillor Merrick, do you want to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now, Mayor, and just really briefly, I really love this project. I think the creek redevelopment itself has been a really positive addition to the community, and I just hear constant good things about it. And yeah, this is a really great follow-on from that to now give it a local Dja Dja Wurrung name. And I'll just read one paragraph in relation to the reconciliation action plan, noting that it also aligns with our council plan. The proposal to name the trail Dja Dja Wurrung strongly aligns with the reconciliation plan, which provides a framework for strengthening partnerships with traditional owners, recognising Dja Dja Wurrung culture and supporting self-determination. The plan's vision to walk together with courage and purpose is reflected in the collaborative approach taken with JARA, including cultural authority for the name and integration of Dja Dja Wurrung language and knowledge. And I think that's really important, and I fully support this.
Thanks, Councillor Merrick. Any other councillors like to speak on this? Councillor Haswell, you have the right to play.
Thanks, Mayor. And I might just briefly come back to the aspect of community input. So there were 103 submissions demonstrating that we've got an engaged and enthusiastic community, which I would hesitate, well, I won't hesitate to say that I think we knew that we've got an engaged and enthusiastic community on lots and lots of things, which is great. So in terms of this particular question around support for the renaming, proposed renaming, in total, 81% of submissions supported the proposed name. And that I think, speaks for itself. But at the same time, I also just wanted to touch on some of those areas which came from the community in terms of responses that were not in support of the proposal, because I think it's always important that we air and listen to those voices that might not be the majority as well. One of those areas was around difficulty in pronouncing the name, and this is something that comes up fairly frequently, I think, still in relation to the use of Indigenous language for naming in Australia. And I think that while I can also appreciate that level of hesitation, perhaps sometimes, I think that it's also a fantastic opportunity for people to become a little bit familiar. And yeah, it's not that hard to make these pronunciations, and it's also okay to make mistakes and to learn as we go through. In terms of JARA's advice on the renaming, we do have a sound file from Harley and Anderson, who is the language expert for JARA, and I think we'll be putting that onto our website, I hope, so that people can actually hear how the name is pronounced and practice it. And there is a wonderful thing too, getting some familiarity with somewhere near accurate pronunciation, and we're all on a learning journey. There is also sometimes a skepticism around the relevance of the name to the track history or fauna. And again, I think that we're very lucky to be guided and advised by our First Nations people in terms of what is appropriate for these spaces. So overall, I think it's a fantastic approach. I also think that as council, we've got a role to play in terms of supporting people in becoming more familiar and more comfortable with JARA language and JARA culture, and helping to facilitate, I guess, that becoming more of our public awareness. So that's it, I think, for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haswell. Okay, well, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. And I share, in fact, I think Councillor Haswell was over now. There's points I was saying, and one thing I got out of that, when we compare our shire to other shires in Victoria, we have far fewer surviving Indigenous place names than most other shires in Victoria. This is a feature of many of the goldfields. And so I think it's really exciting that we get to add a new one. And unlike so many of our other Indigenous place names, like Barringa, or maybe it's Barringa, as I'm now learning, Toronto, and so on, Tarrangala, this is a name that's been generated from our time now, and that's really exciting. And now our delightful community of Barringa has a kind of a cousin in Campbell's Creek, which is kind of nice as well. So 9.5, wellbeing economies, we have nothing like that, but 9.6, organisation. Councillor Driscoll, can I ask you to introduce this, please?
Yes, Mayor, sure, thank you. Mayor, Council has been examining options for establishing a housing trust since February 2022. The discussion commenced in the Council Affordable Housing Workshop. Since that time, there's been several briefings, multiple CEO updates to councillors, and several decisions of council in relation to the establishment of this housing trust. This process of establishing the Mount Alexander Affordable Housing Trust has been undertaken incrementally to ensure minimal reputational and financial risk to council, flexibility to respond to current and future housing needs in the Shire, broad capacity to partner operationally to deliver appropriate, affordable, secure rental housing to a wide range of cohorts, ACNC registration and DGR endorsements to enable access to a wide range of funding, finance and donor contributions, independent functioning of the trust as an organisation from council once established, perpetuity to so resources that go into the trust will serve in the housing needs of Mount Alexander Shire community forever. So in June 2024, Council adopted the trustee, the founding governance document, which defines at a high level the scope and operations of the trust. In the same meeting, Council allocated $500,000 towards the establishment of the trust. The advisory committee to the trust was appointed in September 2024, and in September 25, Council approved a public request for proposal for the trustee role. And the request was opened on the 3rd of October 2025 and closed on the 28th of November 2025. An extensive assessment process was completed in February and March 26, and Mark Proprietary Limited, which is a special purpose entity and is 100% owned by Middle Ground Housing Australia, is recommended for the appointment as the trustee. And also I want to point out, Mayor, that this recommendation, which I'm going to recommend shortly, is unanimously supported by the advisory committee to the Mount Alexander Affordable Housing Trust. And Mayor, I'd like to recommend that Council appoints Mark Proprietary Limited, which is ACN 697097411, as the trustee of the Mount Alexander Affordable Housing Trust, authorises the CEO to execute the deed of trust as founder on behalf of the council. B, develop a letter of appointment with Mark Proprietary Limited outlining the terms and conditions of its appointment as trustee, including the requirement to sign the deed of trust and to act in accordance with the conditions proposed in the report. And C, commit up to $100,000 of the $500,000 previously allocated by council to the Mount Alexander Affordable Housing Trust to reimburse Mark for the expenses in establishing the trust. And 3, notes that control of rights over the deed of trust has been asserted by Mount Alexander Shire Council and DF Mortimer and Associates. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak further to this?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. This is pretty exciting, actually, Mayor. It's taken a while to get to where we are, and we've all had several reports and feedback and many documents for this, so moving forward. So, following the council resolution from the meeting of the council on the 16th of September 25, a request for proposal for the trusteeship was put out there. It was released to the market, I suppose, within time fronting and frameworks. The worker housing project, which is jointly funded by the Community Bank of Malden District and Council, is progressing, and that land was purchased in March 2026, and the planning permit preparation by Havens Home Safe is underway, and expected that this project will be ready for the tenants in 2027. So if council determines to establish a trust for the appointment of a trustee, these assets in Malden would be transferred to the trust in accordance with the previous council report in the big project. So if the councillors endorse this, we'll be up and running, moving forward, and once that gets all established, we'll hopefully be able to get some more donations and things like that to increase this to, as I said it many times before, not to solve the issues, but to certainly go some way into fixing them. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Locke, would you want to speak now, or reserve your right?
I'll speak. Councillor Driscoll's right. This is one of the important pieces of work that we've done over the last 6 years to get the housing trust established, and as we continue, we will see good results. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Maltby. Anyone else like to speak? It's Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, this has been talked about for a long time, but certainly I remember when Councillor Driscoll first got elected to council, we talked about things, and is right from day one he was passionate about affordable housing, and so this has taken years, but yeah, quite a few of us, this was front of mind for many years. I'd like to acknowledge the work of CEO Darren Fuzzo, but in particular our housing solutions broker Claire Richards, done a fabulous amount of work, Claire, and this is really going to lift off this housing trust, and what it means is the establishment of the trust is that people will be able to make tax deductible donations as it gets rolling, and nobody likes paying tax, and so there's going to be lots of money rolling into the Affordable Housing Trust. But I'd like to thank everybody concerned, but in particular CEO Darren and Claire Richards. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Walker.
Just briefly noting, we know housing is a national issue. It's certainly an issue in the Shire. Congratulations to the councillors before us who have been working on this, and this is a great initiative, fully supported. Also note, I've got no problems paying tax. It's just a question of what it gets spent on.
Thanks to Councillor Walker. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mayor. I think, as others have said, this is a really exciting decision that's before us, and yeah, the culmination of many years of work. And I tell the story very often, and I reflect on it a lot about the previous council that some of us were part of, and we kind of, when we were still getting to know each other, and maybe even sitting around this table for the first time, kind of going around and talking about our priorities for the Shire, and we all said housing, and that was really great, honestly, because the organisation council was also had a priority for the provision of more affordable housing. So that alignment really was fantastic, and through getting Claire on board, our housing solutions broker, and through, I guess, consistently making sure that affordable housing remains a priority for this council and for our community. It's just, it's been a lot, and I'm so pleased that we're finally, we're seeing projects that I remember kind of going, is this possible? Can this ever happen? We're seeing things start to come to fruition, and I think one of the challenges with council and local government is that things they take a lot of time, and often the decisions that you're part of, you don't see them come to fruition in your tenure as a councillor, although you may see them come to fruition as a resident. But it is very exciting to have this decision in front of us, and I think this idea of a trust that would the trust principal purpose is to assist persons in need through the provision of affordable housing, and I'm looking at the trust deed and remembering when this was before us, and particularly the groups of people kind of are listed as being of particular priority, individuals and families in need of relief from poverty, distress or disadvantaged, the aged or individuals with health needs or disabilities, and individuals and families who are unable to obtain by their own resources a modest standing of living in the Australian community. I feel like we would all know people who are struggling in terms of housing at the moment. It's it's a problem that it's not getting better on its own, and I don't think it will get better on its own. And there has been at times when we really have had to go, can we keep pursuing these goals, like the trust, because it's not really our job. We're not in the business of affordable housing, but the fact that nobody else is doing it means, we have that moral responsibility when people in our communities are struggling, and many people are not able to remain here because of the lack of affordable housing and, appropriate and all the other things that I think is a basic human right that we should be supporting. So it's just fantastic to see this hopefully coming to fruition, and I'm very much looking forward to what will hopefully be the next stage as the trustee comes on board and the trust itself gets up and running, and to see what happens next, because we still don't know. It's still, there's still so much uncertainty around what the trust may accomplish and achieve, and what it will look like in the future, because I think one of the things that has always drawn me to the trust and why I am so excited about it reaching this point is the fact that all being well, it will exist in perpetuity. You know, it will outlast us. It will be a real and genuine legacy of council and something that can continue doing good and providing for those who are in need of secure, affordable housing, which I always think there will always be a need for that, even when we're not directly in a housing crisis. There is just something so good about setting something up that will continue to do good, whether we're involved or not. I think that the trustee who, you know, the recommendation is to appoint them. They just seem like fantastic people. I have a lot of assurance in their capability. They seem to really get what we are trying to do here. And I know that one of the, not concerns, but one of the tricky parts of this decision right from the start was the fact that once this decision was made, council will be at arm's length from the trust. It will not be something that we have control over in the way that we are so used to being kind of the deciding body in things. It is that trust, and this is where you can use both meanings of that word, I guess, where we trust in the trustee and the trust itself to do the good work that we have set up in the deed. And, you know, I just think there's such a lot of goodness about that. And I'm really pleased. I know we've already done a lot of thank yous, but there is such a lot of people who've gotten us to this point. And I think our CEO obviously is one of those. Darren has been such a champion for affordable housing just from the very beginning. And I think having Claire in the Housing Solutions Broker role, Claire has elevated our ability to respond to the lack of affordable and appropriate housing in our shire. The work that Claire has done has put us in such a strong position for projects like this and others to come to fruition. And I'm so pleased that we have Claire and that, you know, through our example, other shires and other councils are beginning to have positions like Claire's to try and help as well. I would like to particularly thank Councillor Driscoll, who, as Councillor Cordy said, has been such a champion of particularly the trust, but affordable housing. And, you know, it's just, yeah, you must be feeling good too, Matt, because this has been such a big thing and you've been such a big part of driving it. And, you know, you've never wavered once. You've just been onwards and upwards. And I think that's fantastic. Our advisory committee that will, you know, advise the trust, they've been doing fantastic work already. And the fact that I think we appointed that committee prior to the trustee meant that they were able to be involved in this aspect of it, which I think has been a really good exercise in that collaborative kind of beginning. Yeah, so it's kind of all good. This is just one of those ones that I look at and I kind of don't know where it's going to lead, except that I have a lot of hope that it achieves what we hope it does. And I think if we can look back one day and kind of go, we were part of this thing that is continuing to do good in our community beyond us and beyond our control, I think that's wonderful. And I think this is one of those times when I really see what a powerful part local government can play in our communities if we are given, you know, if we are given the room and empowered to do so. This is just one of those projects for me, and I'm very, very excited. And I hope that we go with the recommendation here. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor O'Neill. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. And yeah, big congratulations to Claire, Darren, and the previous council. It's such a privilege to come in at this point where a very sort of, I guess it's hard one. It's been many years in processes coming to fruition. And when I first sort of read about it, I thought that's an incredibly ambitious and creative solution. Not quite unprecedented, but almost unprecedented. And that's exactly what we need when we're facing really big systemic problems. I agree completely with Councillor O'Neill that it shouldn't be our responsibility to provide housing. The housing crisis is created by systemic issues that are way bigger than local governments. And it should be the other tiers of governments responding really effectively to those. The fact that they're not means that there's some big needs in the community. And I agree, while this results in us taking on additional costs, it's meeting a very important need in the community. So yeah, absolute privilege to be coming in and supporting us at this point in the process. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Who else like to speak on this? Councillor Driscoll, you've got a right of reply.
Thanks, Mayor. Just that I hope, and I think the council will, but I think the council will support the recommendation. Just quickly, once again, lots of thanks, but Darren and Claire, wonderful job pushing helping this through. The advisory committee too, that's a voluntary committee of 9 people. We have a fabulous dynamic chairperson, Jackie, who does a great job and pulls everyone together. So I want to thank that. And also last council and this council, I want to thank this council too, because not all the decisions of the last council get accepted, and but it hasn't with this one, hopefully. So hopefully that will be okay. So that's all I have. Thanks, man.
Councillor Driscoll, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour and against? That's carried. And yeah, I want to add my appreciation to Deputy Mayor Driscoll for his work in driving this, but also to that previous councillor group who had the vision, and this is really visionary, especially for a moderate-sized council like us to embark on a program like this. It's really visionary. This is a really exciting moment here in May 2026 to formalise the trust, but also to thank you, my fellow councillors, because even us 4 of us, you in the room, have also put our shoulder to the wheel to drive this, to keep the momentum to run forward. Really is a super outcome. Well done, everyone.
Mayor, do you feel like this decision could perhaps be celebrated with a little clap? Feel like it might be clapped?
Why not? Stephen, well. So 9.6.2, Councillor Corney, would you introduce this, please?
Thanks, Mayor. Purpose of this report is in relation to property acquisition and disposal policy for council. Purpose of this report is to update councillors on the review of the land disposal policy 2013, and following community engagement process, we now seek to adoption of the draft property acquisition and disposal policy 2026. So it's an updated document. From time to time, council wants to dispose of properties, but also in recent times, we've actually acquired properties when we've needed them. And this policy just sets around the process about how we'll do that. And yeah, I commend this to my fellow councillors, and while I'm speaking, I'll acknowledge the work of Michael Annear, Director Michael Annear, and our property coordinator, Lynn Williamson, and I'll move the recommendation as printed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Corney. Do we have a second? Councillor Annear, thank you. Any objections to this, councillors? Councillor Corney, would you like to speak further to this?
It's really just a review of a document here, so I think we'll move on. It's getting late. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Corney. Councillor Annear.
You're going to hate this then, Councillor Cordy, because I'm going to speak to it just a little bit. So while yes, Councillor Cordy is correct, it is an updating of our policy. I think what is worth, there's 2 things I think I'll just briefly point out. So one is that the structure has been updated to make a clearer separation between policy and procedure. Very helpful. They can be quite confusing. But also it's using a principles-based approach. And I think these are really great. So number 1, alignment with the council plan. Number 2, community benefit. Number 3, multi-use of properties. Number 4, transparency. 5, accountability. 6, risk management. 7, access. And 8, environmental impact. So some really good principles there on which to base decisions around property acquisition and disposal. I think the other thing that's worth noting is as a part of getting to this point, the draft policy went out for community consultation and received only one submission that did not really have relevance to the policy. So for all intents and purposes, no news is good news. Nobody had any significant problems with this. I particularly think that having that principles-based approach is always a really solid starting point. And I'd also like to thank Michael and Lynn for their work in updating this policy.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Cordy, you have a right to buy.
Covered it, man.
Let's put to the thanks, Councillor Cordy. Let's put to the vote. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. And 9.6.3. Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Community Asset Committee's initiative appointment. Can I ask Councillor Walker to introduce this, please?
Yes, Mayor. In accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, at the meeting of Council on 16 September 2025, Council established community asset committees and appointed members to these committees. In line with the current instruments of delegation from the Chief Executive Officer to the Community Assets Committees, members are appointed for 2 years. The term of membership for all committee members have common start and end dates. Any member appointed to fill a casual vacancy will leave office at the original expiry date of the member they are replacing. The current membership term expires on 1st of July 2026. The following committees have notified Council of changes to their membership subsequent to holding general meetings. These are Barringham Community Association, Campbell's Creek Community Centre, John Power Reserve, Metcalfe Hall, Muckleford Community Centre, Newstead Community Centre and Wattle Flat Reserve. The purpose of this report is for Council to appoint the new nominated members, noting that all committees have existing members that do not require reappointment. In line with this, Mayor, I move that Council appoints the nominated members to the following community asset committees and acknowledges each committee member retiring from their role as listed below.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Do we have a seconder? It's Councillor Cordy. Any objections? Councillor Walker, do you want to speak further to this?
Thank you. I won't read out the names of the members and those retiring, simply to note that community asset committees are voluntary associations. We're feeling generally a bit of pressure on volunteerism, so certainly have to acknowledge and full respect and thanks to the people that have served on these committees and for what they've put in, and wish them very well in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak there?
Just to acknowledge the service of our Community Asset Committee members. They do a fantastic job and very much appreciated part of our organisation. So thanks to all of those involved, including active and retiring members. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Walker, you've got a right to reply.
I think it's pretty well covered. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. And would someone be so kind as to ask that you just next to it to menu? And you just to offer my personal thanks to those who have retired, to thank them for their service, and to congratulate those who are newly joined those committees. You are part of the backbone of our Shire, and the work that you do is greatly appreciated. So moving on to item 10, delegates reports. Councillor Driscoll. Can I ask Councillor Walker?
Thank you, Mayor. Amongst a number of activities in the last 4 weeks, I would like to particularly mention representing Council at the launch of the new Metcalfe CFA building last Sunday. It was very nice to be a councillor there getting plaudits and thanks to councils. In fact, I didn't do anything, it was councillors before me. In particular, recognition was given to my predecessor, Christine Henderson, but also Councillor Maltby's time as Mayor and Councillor Cordy as well. Metcalfe CFA, the new building, which is a great building, was built on land that did belong to Mount Alexander Shire. And the council had been considering, it's interesting, after the disposal, we've just adopted the disposal policy. Council had been considering selling, but then very kindly gave it to Metcalfe CFA to get the new building. It was a very well attended launch, including the local member, Mary Ann Thomas, and the CEO of CFA, all the surrounding brigades and other people were there. So it was a great event. It was very nice to be representing council there.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Hastwell.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd just like to briefly mention the Malden's 60th anniversary as a notable town. Many people, anybody who knows Malden really knows that it's truly notable. But in 1966, it was declared as Australia's first notable town by the National Trust. The special notable day out took place on May the 10th, and it was really fantastic. Very grounded in community, lots of fun, invitations to dress up in 1960s gear or in gold rush gear. Surprisingly, I went for the 60s look rather than attempt a bustle or anything of that nature. Great day. Congratulations to the Malden Heritage Network and all the local community groups that came together at Malden Market and also on the Bank Corner. Privileged to speak at the opening alongside of the local member for Bendigo West, Marie Edwards. And of course, the celebrations continue throughout the rest of this year. I also just wanted to take a moment to celebrate an individual that will be well known, certainly to many in the Tarrangower ward and also further across the Shire. On Sunday, Sunday just gone, 17th of May, there was a memorial event for Graham Pitts. Malden resident for just 16 years, but proved to be an absolutely irreplaceable member of the community. Amazing writer, community activist, irrepressible creative, with a constant flow of original and often brilliant ideas. Malden's progressive hall was packed to overflowing with local community, as well as many, many others who have been part of Graham's remarkable life nationally and internationally, with an incredible life of significant contributions to cultural development and art as part of the working lives of thousands across Australia. He was also noted for the role he played in supporting and working closely with the East Timorese community in Melbourne, and as well as the facilitation of powerful connections that contributed to the successful establishment of Timor-Leste, as well as fondly the kindness of his heart, his generosity, as well as his cutting wit and his dedication to his family. And I think, and I'm highlighting this individual, you might tell that I'm very moved by Graham's life and also his death. I had the privilege of working closely with Graham during over 10 years in Melbourne with the East Timorese community. But I think also that at times like this, we're reminded that our communities across the Shire are rich, very rich, in personal histories as well as shared histories, and the unique contributions of so many individuals make this Shire such a special place to live, create and work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hastwell. I had the pleasure of performing with Graham some years ago, and yeah, what a enormous character. Councillor Maddock.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a few things for brevity. Was very fun to attend the David Attenborough 100th birthday fringe fundraiser at the town hall. It was going off and it was absolutely hilarious. And yeah, I haven't watched Attenborough for many, many years, but I did in the morning leading up to it, and it's good to be reminded of yeah, I guess what is brought and inspired a lot of fun, and hopefully made the fringe a bit of cash. Community Open Day this weekend was excellent. It just seemed really well attended. I can see that event growing and just getting better and better.
lots of really great organisations there, and I suspect more will want to be involved in it next year. And the kids had a ball. And then just lastly, I've been spending a bit of time down at the Mini-Roos on the Chiltern Soldier Memorials field, coaching the under fives, and it is cranking down there. There are just there's hundreds of people on a Friday night, and how they organise it, I've got no idea. Yeah, coaching's hard enough. I'll stick to that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Malik. Just one for me, tonight, councillors, which is I had the great pleasure of presiding over a citizenship ceremony here. Some of you are here. It really is. I know Councillor Neer used to say this. That it really is like the most joyful. I find such a joyful moment, and really special how everyone, it means something different to everyone, right? That moment of becoming an Australian citizen. It was a really, really lovely event. I had so much nice feedback after the event, not just immediately after, but in the days following, so many people congratulating us here at the Shire for putting on such a lovely and meaningful event. Chief, do you have anything to add for a delegate's report?
Mayor, I think you've had a long night, so I'm happy to take the submission as read.
Thanks, Chief. You can see that they're read here.
May I speak in a last minute?
Yes, please.
Maybe a bit of a non-traditional delegates report. It's kind of harking back to a decision made earlier in the night, and one that we all took very seriously regarding the camp reserve. I think what I'd really like to express, and it's less to you and it's more to other people, and none of them are here, so it's challenging, but the impact that decisions like that have on, or can have on us as individuals. I don't want to speak on behalf of you, and I want to highlight the stress that I feel in making those decisions. And taking the wind out of my sails a bit. So I think what I would really like is for community members to maybe consider their impact on others. And I say this because as I was speaking as part of that debate, I was also getting emailed in real time by a constituent criticising a number of things about me and the way I'm a councillor, saying that I show no interest, that I've lost their vote, that my rave is dull, and that I'm disrespectful.
You're not dull.
Thank you. I don't consider myself to be dull, but I just really want to highlight the fact that, we sit around this table and we make decisions to the best of our ability. And most of the time we get criticised regardless. What I have felt as a representative of council is a complete lack of respect, if I can be blunt. And the way people speak to me and the way people treat me is something that I really dislike. I didn't put my hand up for this role because I thought I was better than anyone else or because I thought I had all the answers. But I'm here doing my best, as are all of you. And I think the amount of judgment and assumptions that we all face at different times around our motivations and how conflated things become about the people we are is really unfortunate. And I think it probably dissuades a lot of people from putting their hand up for this role. Now, I'm not saying this because I want sympathy, and I'm definitely not saying this because I want this individual to feel like they've got to me, but it is a cumulative effect. And I think for someone like me, it wears me out and it wears me down. And I think what people fail to remember sometimes is this is my home too. I have to live here and I want to live here. And sometimes it is made very, very difficult because I feel like I've lost the ability to be a person who lives here at times. And I have to be instead this, honestly, a bad person who makes decisions that make people angry. So I really just wanted to highlight, and maybe this is just my way of processing it, so thank you for giving me a moment to work through it. But this is the kind of stuff that it just wears you out. And it's, it's just unnecessary. I wanted to highlight that and highlight that I think we all deserve a better standard of behaviour than being criticised for doing our jobs and, doing our best. So thank you for letting me have that little moment there. I know it's not a delegate's report, but it's something I really felt like I needed to say at this moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Neer. Councillor Hastwell.
This is a turn, isn't it? This is not on the agenda, but really important. Thank you, Councillor Neer, for raising that. And and also acknowledging that there's generally not a place on our agenda, I think, to discuss these sorts of very impactful parts of our experiences as councillors. And I guess, listening to you speak, I want to express my support as a councillor. And I'm sure, as I'm reflecting on the community around us, of course, there are those difficulties, and also, I hope that you experience the level of support and kindness that is there as well. But I also just wanted to reflect on the fact that, clearly tonight there's been a very genuine and I'm going to call it heated, but a passionate debate amongst ourselves. And I think we've mentioned previously, perhaps very early on in this current term, that as councillors, we agree to disagree with each other, and we also put forward our positions. And if anyone else is still watching out there, I can assure you that at the end of this meeting, we don't rip shreds off each other. We look each other in the face, and we reinstate our commitment to respect for each other. And I hope that that's something that finds a model to the community.
Thanks, Councillor Haslett. Councillor Walker.
Certainly want to express my respect and support for Councillor Anea. It's interesting what you're saying. I get a monthly article in Chat, the local newspaper. And last month, speaking as a crusty old fart, I had to say I didn't realise what an emotional roller coaster being on council was. And it's not whether you get your own way or not. It's just the times, that's what you get, sometimes support, sometimes not. And in terms of the issue we debated earlier, you were saying, right up, you didn't know which way you were going. People know during our discussions, the same here. I wasn't sure which way I'm going, and sometimes you feel whichever way you go is probably going to be the wrong one. But you're trying to make the best decision you can. So great respect to you.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Yeah, I just want to add to that it was a fulsome debate, and I think that it demonstrated that we do care deeply about these issues, and that we had a very thorough debate in the chamber, and that was really satisfying. And I'm really proud of us as a group that we were able to work so professionally through those issues, and that none of us felt restrained to express how we really felt, and that's really valuable. So notice of motion, we have nil urgent special business. Yes, Councillor Anea. Thank you.
I would like to propose some urgent special business, if I may.
Yes, please.
So I would like to move a motion that we consider this urgent special business 2026/001 Castlemaine Childcare Cooperative Ltd Carina lease as a matter of urgent special business. I believe it meets the requirements of urgent special business due to the grant deadline that Carina are hoping to meet, and the need to secure a long-term lease with council to be applicable for that grant.
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Nolby. Councillor Leonard.
Can I just declare a conflict of interest? Yes, ma'am. I was made aware this afternoon, unbeknownst to me, that I am a voting member of that co-op.
Congratulations.
And let me leave the room.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Maddock. Councillor Anea.
What do you want me to do?
Oh,
He's moved them.
you moved? I beg your
Consider
pardon.
it.
Sorry.
As an item of urgent special.
Oh, indeed, yeah. Okay, so we'll vote on whether we, so all those in favour of accepting this as a motion of special business? Yep, and against? Okay, that's passed. Okay,
I have another motion there.
excellent. Thank you, Councillor Anea.
And also emotions, but I'll just stick to the motion for now. So, thank you, councillors, for accepting this matter as urgent special business. I would like to move the motion. I'm going to read it in full. that council, one, acknowledges the important and long-standing role that Castlemaine Childcare Cooperative Limited, Carinya, has played in offering childcare and early education services to our community. Their established partnership with council through their recently expired 30-year Peppercorn lease of 15 Templeton Street, Castlemaine, and the urgent need to expand early education services in our shire. Two, acknowledges that Carinya needs to confirm they have a lease or agreement to a long-term lease of 30 years for 15 Templeton Street, Castlemaine, to be eligible to apply for the current round of Building Early Education Fund grants, intending to expand its service if successful. Three, acknowledges the responsibility in accordance with Section 115 of the Local Government Act 2020 and Council's community engagement policy to give public notice of the intention to enter a lease with the Castlemaine Childcare Cooperative Limited with a council-owned property at 15 Templeton Street, Castlemaine. 4, considers it justifiable to accept a shorter than normal timeframe for community consultation, given the time constraints and the potential benefit to the community in supporting the expansion of Carinya's services. 5, notes the consultation data gathered during community consultation on this matter. 6, approves the CEO to issue a letter of agreement to enter into a 30-year lease with Carinya for use of the land at 15 Templeton Street, Castlemaine at Peppercorn rent rates. 7, delegates to the CEO authority to enter into a 30-year lease with Castlemaine Childcare Cooperative Limited for 15 Templeton Street, Castlemaine at Peppercorn rent and including conditions deemed appropriate by the CEO. 8, notes the relevant deadline for the Building Early Education Fund small-scale capital grant application of 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on 29th May 2026 and seeks that the letter of agreement to enter into a lease and a letter of support be delivered to Carinya in a timely manner to enable the completion of their application.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you. Second. Thank you, Councillor Volpe. Councillor Lee, would you like to speak further on this?
I will. Thank you. And I'll acknowledge our one remaining audience member who has stayed till last stumps. Thank you, Lucas, for being here and also for speaking as part of public time. I think you mentioned the expansion in 1995. I was at the time a Carinya child. That was where I spent my preschool years, and I was telling a colleague earlier that I have the fondest memories because when we graduated from kinder, they took us to the ferry park and I hid in the slide because I never wanted to leave, and I still think about it sometimes. This motion, look, it makes a lot of sense to me. I think this council and you know, through in multiple ways has established and heard that childcare provisions in the Shire are not enough, and that there are lots and lots of families unable to access the care that they need. And this has lots and lots of impacts on families. I've listed a few in the background here. And from personal experience, the people I know who are struggling, not being able to access care, the impacts on them are wide-ranging, but a lot of the ones that you see are inability for one parent to return to work, and often the mother or female parent, because often we are the primary carers. I think back to my time as a child primary carer for my kids and how much I needed care a couple of days a week to enable me to study, to enable me to undertake employment, to enable me to just have a break from, you know, what is relatively relentless, especially when children are young, and how difficult it would have been for myself and my family if we had not been able to access care, like so many people I know are unable to access care. So through that lens, and I guess what I'm thinking about is childcare. We've established that childcare, the childcare needs are not being met, and that getting more services and more spaces for people to access childcare is a priority. So for me, anything that we can do to help that happen is something that we should be doing. It's that simple to me. This seems like such a sound proposal. I know, you know, we've had this long-standing relationship with Carinya, And, you know, they have been providing care for kids who grow into adults like me, who could one day be sitting around this table. Like, it is such an important service. And we just need more. I know I was speaking to the director of the centre a few days ago, and she told me, I think you mentioned above 300 on the waiting list. I think she told me 365 families are on the waiting list. That is a huge amount of people unable to access care, and the financial and emotional and just all of the impacts that flow through from that, as well as, you know, childcare is quite good for children as well, because they learn how to be part of a group and to get along with other kids. And, you know, I just think it's such a fantastic experience all around, and we should be doing whatever we can to facilitate you know, more childcare options so that families can access them. I think what is really wonderful to see, obviously, the Act requires that we go out for community consultation on leasing matters like this. You'll see under my section the need for speed, which I'm so thrilled that is left in there. That we would usually go out for longer for community consultation. We did not have that time. The application is due very soon, and I felt, as did council officers, that 10 days was an appropriate amount of time given the constraints. Also, from that consultation, the data is fantastic. So we got, in that 10 days, we got 310 responses, and 305 of them indicated support for council offering a long-term lease to the Castlemaine Childcare Cooperative Limited for the use of 15 Templeton Street. So I think given that, and given, you know, that I really do believe that that if we do consider additional childcare to be a priority, this council should be doing everything it can to facilitate that. And I think given that Carina have they are doing all the work that they can do their end to prepare for their vote, and hopefully expand their service, therefore offering more places to local families. I think it's all good. So I'm really hopeful that my fellow councillors support this, so that Carina can get on and do what they need to do, and hopefully that ends in additional childcare places for local families, which, again, it's not going to be enough to solve the complete problem, but it's going to be a step in the right direction. And I think we need to be doing everything we can. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Lear. Councillor Maltby.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm 150% in favour. Childcare is important, very important, and if there's 360 people, kids looking for it, we have to do something. It's just another one of, like I mentioned, the other two others that I have in my mind at the moment, of us being a forward-looking council. Think about aged care, where we decided to be one of the very few councils in the country to continue it. And tonight we went through the Housing Trust. So if you add those to childcare, we certainly are a forward-looking council helping our community.
Councillor Maltby. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Criswell.
Oh, thanks, Mayor. I initially, when this was brought up, was against the shorter than normal timeframe in community consultation, because I like it to run its full course. But so first, I want to thank Councillor Neer for a fantastic paper, because it's pointed out lots of things to me. So I'm fully supportive. Not all people have fantastic grandparents like my wife and I do, but your grandkids, whatever you want. So that we need to appreciate that. I'd like to, Lucas, thanks for your explaining before. That also helped me across the board. So I'm fully supportive of this, and good luck.
Thanks, Councillor Gisborne. Councillor Haslam.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Rainier, Councillor Maltby, and Councillor Driscoll. You've probably pretty much taken the words out of my mouth too. I know that we discussed this earlier on, and I initially had some hesitation because I really value consistency and clarity around the process. I think it's very clear that in this instance, this is an exceptional instance, it's a very important opportunity. I also just want to thank you as well. You spoke compellingly, and I think the combination of the work that Councillor Neer has put into this and other council law discussions that we've had around the table, as well as your representation, it has become it's moved from hesitation to a no-brainer for me as well.
Thanks, Councillor Haswell. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor O'Neill, you have the right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to say, I appreciate my colleagues' openness to, waiting and reading and considering, and I'm big on a good process too. I like good process. It makes sense to me. But I also understand that there are things that exist in good process for situations like this, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Neer. Okay, let's put to the vote. All those in favour of the motion and against, that's carried.
Call for a division.
Or just to indulge Councillor Neer, that's.
No, because it might look good.
Yeah, no, that's sure. So
that we're unanimous.
So let the show of hands again. All those in favour. So that's all 7 of us. Yeah.
Thanks for indulging me. Thanks, Lucas.
Yeah, so you report them.
Yeah, but it's also to demonstrate that there was unanimous. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important. It's in some matters. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Welcome back, Councillor Malik. Now, I'm aware that we've been going more than 2 hours, so I am going to call a 10-minute adjournment. We will reconvene at 9:50. Welcome back, councillors. Welcome back to those watching on YouTube. We have one more item of urgent special business. Councillors, do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that planning permit PA077/2025 be considered as a matter of urgent special business in accordance with Council Rules 13.1H. A motion is required on this as it is a planning permit application.
Thank you, councillor. We have a second.
Oh, second.
Thank you, councillor Walker. Councillor Morgan, would you like to speak to your motion?
The motion covers the issue simply.
Councillor Walker?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Let's put that to the vote. And has any other councillors like to argue for or against this? Okay, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour and against? So that's carried. Councillors, do we have so that was a procedural motion, so we can entertain an item of urgent special business. Councillors, do we have a substantive motion? Councillor Haswell.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move that this matter be deferred to a future meeting of council to enable officers to prepare grounds for refusal.
Thank you, Councillor Haswell. We have a seconder. Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Haswell, do you want to speak further to this?
No, I think that it's clear.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to this?
I think just so we're clear, we want to develop grounds for refusal for the Camp Reserve planning matter. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Any other councillors like to speak for or against this motion? Thank you, councillors. We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour and against?
I'm abstaining.
And that's carried. Thank you, councillors. That concludes special business. Confidential items, we have none. So declare the meeting closed at 10 o'clock. 9:59.